My name is Chin Ling. I'm 23 years old, fresh out of agricultural university, and I just got kicked out of my third police station today. I know how it sounds. I walked in and told them acid rain would destroy the world in 90 days. I told them I have a system in my head. I asked the government to give me 10,000 acres of land to grow wheat. The old cop rubbed his temples, handed me an anti-scam flyer, and shoved me out the door. But I'm not crazy. I came back from the dead. Yesterday, I woke up screaming. In my past life, I lived through the end of the world. First came a fog that covered the whole planet. Then acid rain that melted everything. Buildings, skin, crops. After that, extreme heat, drought, sandstorms. I survived 9 months of hell before a massive earthquake finally killed me. But not before a young soldier saved my life. He threw himself over me when a concrete slab came crashing down. He held it up with his own body. I heard his spine snap. He was coughing blood, but he smiled at me and said, "Don't be scared. The country is still here." Then he died on top of me, and I died shortly after. Now I'm back. It's June 30th, 90 days before everything starts. In my last life, I had this thing called the multidimensional eco-farm system. It can grow miracle crops, wheat that survives acid rain, rice that withstands extreme heat. But I was selfish. I was scared of being taken away and studied like a lab rat. So I hid in my hometown with 10 acres of land, dreaming of getting rich quietly. When the acid rain came, my little farm dissolved like paper. I ended up in a government shelter like everyone else, watching soldiers die to protect us, watching people starve. Not this time. The system needs 10,000 acres and official government approval to fully activate. The advanced crops inside it are only half finished. They need top-level labs and real scientists to make them work at scale. I'm just a farm school graduate. I can't do that alone. Only the country can. Only that giant machine can build the farm, set up defenses, and turn these black tech seeds into something that feeds 1.4 billion people in time. That soldier shouldn't have died. Those people screaming in the disasters shouldn't have died. So I'm done hiding. I'm handing myself and this system over. The police won't listen. Regular channels are too slow. I need someone high up, someone who understands agriculture and science. I searched on my phone and found a name. Zhou Huaishui, a National Academy scientist, the top hybrid wheat expert in the country. The news says he's giving a public lecture at the Chinese Academy of Sciences this afternoon. I stepped off the curb, stopped a taxi, and got in. "Take me to the Academy of Sciences," I said. "I need to save people." The driver looked at me through the mirror, pale face, bloodshot eyes, and didn't know what to make of me. I squeezed the small metal ball in my hand, the one gift the system gave me. Inside it is my only trump card, a device called 10 Seconds of the Future. It lets someone see how the world changes over the next year. "Drive," I said. "Fast." I stood outside the gates of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, pacing back and forth while the guard watched me like I was a bug he wanted to squash. I walked up to the guard window and raised my hands to show I had nothing dangerous. "I need to see academician Zhou Huaishui," I said. "I have an extremely important scientific sample to hand over." He looked me up and down. T-shirt, jeans, sneakers, just a college kid. "Do you have an appointment?" "No. But what I have concerns the fate of this nation." He almost laughed. Told me dozens of people say that every day. Said I should leave my stuff at the reception desk and someone would contact me. That wasn't going to work. So I leaned in close to the glass and lied through my teeth. Tell him someone found wild pinaploid wheat with extreme acid resistance and high temperature tolerance. The sample is in my hands. It was a lie. The sample was locked inside my system store, unreachable for now. But I knew Zhou Huaishui. In my past life, this old man knelt in a dead wheat field after the acid rain and wept. He died in a sandstorm trying to save a handful of mutated seeds. If anyone would come running for this kind of news, it was him. The guard hesitated, then picked up the phone. 2 minutes later, a white-haired old man in a worn lab coat came rushing out of the building, glasses crooked on his face, gasping for breath. Where's the wheat?" He grabbed my arm. I looked at that face, the same face I'd only seen in an obituary in my last life, and my nose stung. I swallowed my emotions down hard. "Professor Zhou, let's talk privately. This isn't just about wheat. It's about what happens to this country in 3 months." His eyes turned sharp, like a hawk's. His assistant warned him I might be a scammer, maybe some streamer pulling a stunt. But the old man waved him off and led me inside. We entered a sealed meeting room. Joe dismissed everyone except one young assistant to take notes. Then he sat down, took a gulp of tea, and said, "Now, show me the acid-resistant wheat sample." I didn't move. "Professor Joe, I lied to you." The room went dead silent. The assistant jumped to his feet, face red with anger, shouting for security. Joe's expression sank. The spark of hope in his eyes died out. He reached for the call button on the desk. "I don't have a wheat sample," I said, loud enough to cut through the shouting. "But I have something that can change this entire country. I call it the future." I pulled the metal ball from my pocket. Its surface shimmered with a faint glow, not quite metal, more like liquid silver. A material that doesn't exist on this planet. Joe's hand froze above the call button. He stared at the ball. He knew. One look and he could tell. This material wasn't from Earth. "What I'm about to show you might be intense," I said. "Do you have heart problems?" "I have emergency heart pills," he said, and sat up straight. I pressed my finger to the top of the ball. Words were useless. I'd let the truth speak for itself. The system responded. New user gift. 10 seconds of the future activated. A deep hum filled our skulls, not a sound from the air, but something vibrating directly inside our brains. The ball floated up, defying gravity, and light poured out of it, filling the whole room. Holographic projection? The assistant sneered. "That's your trick?" Then his smile froze. Because he smelled it, a sharp, sickening acid. Then came a wave of suffocating heat. The metal ball cracked open. The soft blue light exploded into a blood-red curtain that swallowed the entire room. Zhou Huaishui went rigid. The assistant, who'd been about to grab me, stood there with his mouth hanging open, staring at what was unfolding before his eyes. The white meeting room disappeared. What we saw instead was an endless wasteland of burned ruins. The sky was a sickly gray, and yellow, murky rain was falling. Where the drops hit concrete, they hissed and sent up white smoke. The ground rotted and turned black like someone had poured acid on it. Cars on the streets were eaten through, nothing left but rusted skeletons. Every plant was dead, just black charcoal stumps. Bodies everywhere. Some already bones, some still rotting. In a corner, a few people in rags were fighting each other over a dead rat. Then the scene changed. Blazing sun. A child in torn clothes was lying on cracked earth, trying to lick the last bit of moisture from the dirt. The heat burned his tongue. He went still. Another shift. Sandstorm. 100 meters tall. I watched a landmark skyscraper sway and collapse with a sickening crack. The shockwave hit us with sand and dust so real I couldn't breathe. Then the ground split open. Lava. People screaming, running. Endless despair. The last image pulled back to show Earth from space. No longer blue and beautiful, just a dead gray-yellow marble. 10 seconds. It felt like a century. The light faded. The meeting room came back. Zhou Huaishui was drenched in sweat, white as a ghost, clutching his chest and gasping. His teacup fell off the table and shattered. Hot tea splashed on his legs, but he didn't even notice. He just sat there, frozen, staring at nothing. The metal ball floated back into my hand and vanished into thin air. That little trick, pulling objects from nowhere, storing them in empty space, completely destroyed the young assistant's worldview. He slumped in his chair with his legs shaking so hard, he couldn't even call for security anymore. I wasn't doing great either. My forehead was covered in cold sweat. Activating that thing drains you badly, and this was the second time today. I was barely staying on my feet. I poured Zhou a glass of water and handed it to him. "Professor Zhou, that's what Earth looks like in 3 months, I said, my voice hoarse. Acid rain, extreme heat, sandstorms, earthquakes, one after another. If we don't prepare, everyone dies. He was a world-class scientist. After the initial shock, his rational mind kicked back in. He knew that what we'd just felt, the burning on our skin, the smell of death, no VR technology on the planet could do that. Those signals went straight into the brain. Even if he didn't believe in the apocalypse, he had to believe that I was holding technology far beyond anything this era had produced. He swallowed 2 heart pills, steadied his breathing, then stood up and walked right to me, stepping on broken ceramic without caring. He didn't ask, "What is this technology?" or "Who are you?" He asked the most important question. "Besides you, who else knows about this?" "Only me," I said. "I came here to hand it over. Can you play it again?" "Yes." "Good. Good." He spun around and roared at his terrified assistant. Lock the door. Unplug the phone line. Nobody in or out. I'm contacting the top right now. Then, with trembling hands, he pulled an old red flip phone from his inner pocket. Not a regular phone. This one only connects to one place, the highest decision-making center of the country. This is Zhou Huaishui. Connect me to General Staff 2nd Department. Get me Lei Zhan. Immediately, half an hour later, I heard the roar of helicopters tearing through the sky above us. 2 military choppers with special markings landed on the roof. Fully armed special forces poured into the building like a black tide, boots hammering the floor, sealing off the entire level. Any researcher who poked their head out got pushed back by a gun barrel and a cold, scientific handover in progress. Return to your station. The blast-proof door of our meeting room swung open. A lieutenant general in combat gear strode in with a small team. Hard face, iron presence, smelling like gunpowder and war. Lei Zhan, director of the Special Operations Division, National Security Bureau. His eyes swept the room and locked onto me in the corner. Don't scare the kid, Zhou said, stepping half in front of me. He told Lei Zhan he'd already reported everything and sent the footage through encrypted channels. Lei Zhan waved his men out, left only one classified records officer, and personally bolted the heavy iron door shut. Professor Zhou, you've spent your whole life in science. You really believe this supernatural stuff? He knocked his knuckles on the table. The apocalypse in 3 months? It's not a joke, Zhou said. If you didn't believe it, you wouldn't have come in person with this much firepower. That shut him up for a second. He gave a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes, then sat down across from me, arms on the table, leaning forward. The pressure coming off him was like a mountain. Kid, I don't care if you got a system or picked up some alien toy, he said, voice low and heavy. The state runs on evidence. Hard proof that can be tested again and again. One mysterious video and one glowing metal ball aren't enough to make the entire national machine move for one person. You understand that, right? I expected the doubt. Preparing for the apocalypse means moving trillions in funds and shaking up the entire country. Get it wrong, and nobody can afford that price. So I was ready. General Lei, I understand, I said, leaning forward. I know it sounds insane, but I can give you 2 predictions of things that are about to happen. You verify them. If I'm right, it proves everything is real. I dug into my memories from my past life, small disasters that happened before the big one, things nobody paid attention to at the time. First, 5 hours from now, around 7:54 p.m. tonight, Yunnan Province, Nanxi County, sudden rain and fog. A small mudslide will hit the road near Huangshe Village. 3 private cars will be buried by falling rocks. Second, tomorrow, July 1st, for 30 a.m., southern Chongqing, Wulin Mountain area. A sudden landslide, not from rain, but from a shift in the Earth's crust. It will bury a small village called Luoshui, everyone there. Wiped out. My voice shook on those last words. In my past life, these were just 2 minor news stories that people forgot about in days. It wasn't until after the apocalypse that geologists realized the signs had been there all along. Lei Zhan's face went cold. He thought I sounded less like a prophet and more like a terrorist who had planned the attacks himself. If this is my doing, I said calmly, you can shoot me right now. But if it's real, General, give me the highest level of trust. We're running out of time. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he turned to his officer. Get all that down? Notify the Yunnan Military District and Chongqing local government. Use military exercises as the cover story. Seal off both areas and evacuate the civilians. Now. Then he looked back at me. Kid, from now on, you're not going anywhere. If you're right, you're a national hero. If you're wrong, if I'm wrong, I won't make it out of this room. I finished for him. They put me in a padded room with no windows, a camera blinking red on the ceiling, and 4 armed soldiers outside the door. I slept like a baby. I knew those people out there wouldn't sleep a second tonight. 5 hours later, in the command center, they were watching live drone footage of that mountain road in Yunnan. The road was already sealed off, military trucks blocking both ends. Rain had started. Fog was rolling in. At 7:54 p.m. Not 1 minute early, not 1 second late. The mountain shuddered without warning. Mud, water, and rocks came roaring down like an angry dragon, swallowing the road whole. If they hadn't blocked it off, based on normal evening traffic flow, exactly 3 cars would have been passing through. 3 families. A dozen lives. 0 casualties. Because they listened to me. But Lei Jun wasn't fully convinced yet. He crushed out his cigarette and said, "Don't jump to conclusions. There's still the second one. Maybe this was a coincidence. Maybe he knows geology. Even if there's a 1 in 10,000 chance this was staged or luck, we can't gamble the nation's future on it." So they waited through the night. Nobody slept. The command room smelled like strong tea and overheated equipment. Zhou Huaishui dozed off in his chair. He was old. He couldn't help it. But Lei Jun stood like a statue, eyes bloodshot, watching the screen showing Wulin Mountain. Luoshui village sat at the base of the mountain, already evacuated hours ago. On the infrared screen, the village was dark and empty except for a few stray dogs. At 4:28 a.m., the geological sensors showed nothing. Calmer than usual, even. Not a single tremor. For 29, still nothing. For 30, the screen shook violently. The entire mountainside peeled away like someone slicing a cake. Millions of cubic meters of rock and dirt pouring down. The little village called Luoshui was erased from the map in seconds. Down to the minute. Again, the deputy's voice cracked. "Sir, this guy literally has a third eye or something." Lei Jun slammed his fist into the metal console so hard it left a dent. Cups jumped off the table and shattered. Both predictions. Both perfect. This wasn't humanly possible. The apocalypse was real. It was coming. He closed his eyes for 2 seconds. When he opened them, the shock was gone. What replaced it was the look of a soldier about to march into war. He grabbed the red phone, the one that connects directly to the top, and dialed. "Elder Chun. It's me, Lei Jun. Yesterday's report has been confirmed." The young man named Chin Ling. "Everything he said is true. I'm requesting the activation of the highest-level emergency meeting." Silence on the other end. Then a voice, steady as a mountain. "Bring Comrade Chin Ling to the Supreme War Council chamber. We'll be waiting." Later, my door opened. Lei Jun stood there, but he looked different. No gun. His combat uniform was replaced by a crisp, formal uniform, gold stars gleaming on his shoulders. And the way he looked at me had completely changed. The suspicion was gone. In its place was a barely contained energy, and buried underneath, something that looked like respect. "Comrade Chin Ling," he said, voice rough. "The disasters in Yunnan and Chongqing both happened exactly as you said. But because of your warning, we sealed the roads and evacuated the villagers. Not a single person was hurt." Then he snapped his boots together and raised his right hand in a crisp military salute. "Comrade Chin Ling, on behalf of the nation, thank you." I scrambled to my feet, caught off guard. In my past life, this man was the commander I admired most. The iron-willed general who led soldiers through disaster after disaster to protect our people. And now he was saluting me. I straightened my back and returned the salute. It wasn't perfect form, but it was sincere. "General Lei, it's what I should do," I said. "But this is only the beginning." "You're right. Only the beginning." He stepped aside and gestured toward the hallway. "The car is downstairs." "Let's go." "Where?" "The capital." He looked me in the eye. "The Grand Elder is waiting for you. The nation is ready to move." I nodded, folded up the papers I'd been writing on, stuffed them in my pocket, and walked out. I'd been waiting for this moment. At the end of the hallway, the first light of morning was coming through the glass windows. In 3 months, that warm sunlight would turn into radiation and fire that kills. But for now, it still shone on a land full of hope. They took me underground, deep under the western hills of the capital, into a command bunker with no signs on the doors. When I walked into that meeting room, my legs almost gave out. A long redwood table, and every seat filled. On the left side, military uniforms covered in gold stars, the real power of the armed forces. On the right, silver-haired elders and faces I'd only seen on the evening news. The head of the Academy of Sciences, the ministers of agriculture, industry, finance. Every person in this room could shake the country just by stomping their foot. At the head of the table sat an old man in a gray suit. Elder Chun. He was quietly reading a report, my report. My life history, my predictions, my movements over the past few days. All of it, laid out on paper. I'd just shown them the 10 seconds of the future. The metal ball hovered in the center of the table, glowing blue. Those 10 seconds of acid-eaten buildings, destroyed mountains, and screams of despair were still ringing in everyone's heads. Several old generals had veins bulging on the backs of their hands. Others were wiping tears with shaking fingers. Lejeune came in with a lab report. The metal ball's material, energy patterns, physical properties, none of it matched anything on Earth. The projection technology alone was at least 100 years ahead of us. Elder Chun tapped his knuckles on the table twice. The room went silent instantly. The situation is clear, he said. Hard to believe, but the facts are right in front of us. Comrade Chin Ling has brought us not just a warning of the end, but our only chance at survival. He waved me over to an empty seat near him. Come sit down, young man. Don't be nervous. You warned us about 2 disasters and saved over 100 lives. You're a hero. Today we want to hear about your system. I pinched my thigh under the table to steady myself. The predictions only proved the disaster was real. To get the country's full support, I needed to show them the solution. I stood up, pulled out the folded papers from my pocket, and spread them on the table. To save this nation, I need the country to help me do 3 things. First, I need land. 10,000 acres, and I need absolute control over it. Second, I need the highest level military defense perimeter built around that land. At least 1 full division stationed there. Third, and most important, I need every top expert from the National Agricultural Academy and every seed gene bank in the country fully open to me. The Minister of Agriculture frowned. You want to farm? Yes, farm. I explained as fast as I could. My system is called the multidimensional eco-farm. Those 10,000 acres are the system's foundation. Once activated, the land gets covered by a force field, a clean zone in the middle of the apocalypse. It blocks acid rain, purifies radiation, regulates temperature. More importantly, the system unlocks advanced disaster-resistant crops and black tech samples through planting missions. Things far beyond current science. I paused and looked around the room. But there's a critical weakness. Every crop the system gives me is a half-finished product. An old silver-haired academician leaned forward immediately. Half-finished? What do you mean? I pointed at my head. The system provides prototype mother seeds. Take the level 1 unlock, acid rain-resistant wheat. It grows fine inside the farm's force field. But outside it, the acid resistance drops sharply. These seeds can't be planted at scale in the real world without modification. A research team has to adapt them to Earth's environment first. Otherwise, the farm alone can't feed the whole country. Nobody spoke for a while. They were all processing. So basically, the agriculture minister said, scribbling notes furiously, we treat your farm as a mother seed research base, and we handle the reverse engineering and mass production. Exactly. Time? The industry minister cut in. 3 months. Is it enough? Depends on how much scientific power you throw at it, I said. In my last life, I worked alone, and I never cracked it. But if the nation's top academicians get involved, I stopped. The words had already left my mouth. Last life. The room went dead silent. Quieter than before. An old general with 3 gold stars on his shoulder, Chijingwa, raised his head slowly. Wait, young man, you just said last life? My heart skipped a beat. I'd been so focused on proving the system worked that the memories of my past life just spilled out. My mouth ran ahead of my brain. I opened my mouth, trying to recover. He didn't let me. He held up 2 fingers and tapped the table. Also, you said your system is a farm. It gives prototype seeds, planting missions, black tech samples. If it's a farming system, then why did it give you precise geological disaster warnings? Down to the exact minute? Down to the number of buried cars? That question hit the room like thunder. Everyone's expression changed. He was right. If this were some all-knowing prophecy system, fine. But I told them myself, it was a farm system. A system for growing crops. So how could it predict mudslides and landslides to the second? The logic didn't add up. Young man, you're among friends here. We all believe in you. We believe your system can change the outcome of the apocalypse, General Chi said, leaning forward, and I could feel the killing edge he'd carried off 100 battlefields. But we're not stupid. Your disaster predictions were too precise. Your understanding of the system is too deep. Based on our analysis of your movements, you've had this system for 3 days at most. He pulled out a page from the report, my daily activities for the past month. You don't act like someone who just stumbled into a miracle. There's something else you haven't told us, isn't there, sir? I opened my mouth, but couldn't find the words. I'd planned to keep the rebirth thing secret. My past life wasn't exactly a happy memory. Then Lejeune stepped in front of me, blocking General Chi's stare. Sir, A system this advanced could easily have multiple functions. A warning feature isn't that strange. And after 2 days of observation, the anxiety and pain comrade Chin Ling showed during his predictions weren't fake. Zhou Huaishui backed me up too. Old Qi, black cat or white cat, the one that catches mice is the good cat. The tech in that metal ball can't be faked. Everyone in this room felt those 10 seconds. Why does every detail need to be picked apart? People have secrets. The boy is here for the country, watching these two, one soldier, one scientist, shield me like that. I felt a warmth I didn't expect. A day ago we were strangers. Now they were choosing to trust me without conditions. But General Qi didn't back down. Lei Jun, old Zhou, step aside. I need absolute honesty. Handing the nation's future to someone who's hiding things, that's irresponsible to the people. His eyes cut through them and locked onto me. Young man, tell the truth. How did you know that mudslide would hit at that exact moment? I took a deep breath and pushed Lei Jun aside. The hole in my story was already ripped open. I couldn't patch it. Lying would be useless. These people would see through me in a heartbeat. And staying silent was even worse. Once trust cracks, everything after becomes 10 times harder. At the head of the table, Elder Chun was watching me too. I clenched my teeth. Fine. All in. General Qi is right. The farm system can't predict disasters. I met the old general's eyes and closed mine for a second. My voice shook. The reason I know everything so clearly isn't because of the system. It's because I've already died once. Today is day 89 of the countdown. But in my memory, I already died in a super earthquake 9 months after the apocalypse began. I'm a reborn person. Those words hit the room harder than the metal ball's projection. Several ministers looked at each other in shock. Rebirth, something that only exists in web novels, was now being discussed in a national-level meeting. Absurd, one official blurted out. That's superstition. Let him speak. Elder Chun raised his hand from the head of the table. His eyes were deep and calm. Go on, Shaoqin. I know it sounds insane. But if I didn't live through it, how would I know about the Nanxi mudslide? How would I know about Luoshui village? How would I know the details of what happens 90 days from now? The bloody memories surged back up. Last life, I awakened the system before the disasters too. But I was terrified of being captured and cut open for research. So I quietly went back to my hometown, rented 10 acres, and dreamed about getting rich from magic crops. What happened? Zhou Huaishui couldn't help asking. The acid rain came and my pathetic little farm couldn't take it. The lowest level shield was too weak. It dissolved straight through. I laughed bitterly. After that I had no choice but to go to a government shelter and survive with everyone else. I didn't know that once the farm system is placed, it can't be moved. By then I wanted to hand it over, but it was too late. I couldn't relocate it. My voice got rougher. So every day I just watched. People starving to death, dying of thirst, buried by sandstorms. Bodies piled into mountains in the shelters. They couldn't burn them fast enough. I was shaking. Not from fear, from regret. And that soldier, I closed my eyes. His young face floated up again. He couldn't have been older than 20. When the earthquake hit, he held up a concrete slab with his back to protect me. His spine snapped. His mouth was full of blood. And he was still telling me, don't be scared. The country is still here. Then he died. Right in front of me. And I never even learned his name. I dropped to my knees. Hard. Not begging. Releasing. The weight of carrying humanity's extinction as a secret. All that pressure I'd been holding since I came back. It finally broke free. Why the hell did I get to live? Why should someone younger than me die in my place? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Tears ran down my face. So this time, I'm done hiding. I'm handing over the system. I want those disasters to go to hell, and I want every person who should have survived to actually live. That's my explanation. Silence. A full 30 seconds of silence. If someone said this anywhere else, they'd be hauled off to a psych ward. But looking at me kneeling there, crying, with that kind of despair and guilt that no actor could fake, nobody laughed. General Qi, the one who'd pushed me hardest, took off his military cap. His white hair showed underneath. He looked down, running his fingers over the emblem again and again, his eyes red. Then Elder Chin stood up slowly. He walked around the long table, came to me, bent down, and gripped my arms with rough, calloused hands. He pulled me to my feet. Good child. Stand up. His voice trembled slightly, but underneath was a steadiness like a mountain. No need to kneel. He brushed the dust off my knees. You've been through enough. Then he turned to face the room full of generals and ministers. Did you all hear that? His voice wasn't loud, but the authority in it was absolute. Reborn, time-traveled, sent by aliens. I don't care. What matters is that he's one of us. He's our countryman. As long as his heart holds this land and its people, he's our comrade. The metal ball is real. The predictions are real. So the system is real. How it got here? Who cares? I only care about one thing. Can it save 1.5 billion of our people? He placed both hands on the table and looked around the room. Now, I propose immediate activation of the nation's highest level of war readiness. I agree. Zhou Huaishui was the first to stand. Tears ran down his wrinkled face. I've spent my whole life in agriculture so people could eat. Now we have a chance. Even if it grinds my old bones to dust, I'll make those disaster-resistant seeds work. General Qi put on his cap and saluted. The military will begin defense planning immediately. As long as we have one bullet left, we won't let that horrible future happen. The industry minister was already scribbling calculations. Shut down all entertainment industries. Move every factory to wartime production. 3 months. I'll push output up 20 times. Energy is in. Don't worry, we'll keep the power flowing. Finance agrees. If the future is real, then money is just paper. Spend it now while it still means something. One by one, hands went up around the table. The will of 1.5 billion people gathered in one room. Elder Chin slammed the table. Then it's decided. Effective immediately, we establish the National Special Disaster Response Command. Codename: Chin Ling. Chin Ling passed from hand to hand, never going out. His eyes swept the room. I'll serve as Supreme Commander. Qi Jinghua as Deputy. Comrade Chin Ling. Here. I wiped my face and snapped to attention without thinking. Effective immediately, Chin Ling is granted the special rank of Major General. He will serve as Special Advisor to Project Chin Ling and Director of the Multidimensional Eco Farm. The 10,000 acres you need, mountain or ocean, the country will give it to you. The defense line you need, the country will build it. People, money, supplies, just say the word. He paused for 1 second. But Xiaoqin, whether we can hold on to this last hope depends on you. I stood straight. My eyes burned, but I held it in. I'd cried once already. That was enough. No more tears. From now on, I needed iron. I walked to the huge map on the wall. My finger passed over the rich river valleys of the south, passed over the fertile black soil of the northeast, and pressed hard into the far northwest corner of the country. A patch of yellow wasteland. No man's land. Sir, I want this spot. The southern foothills of the Altai Mountains. 10,000 acres of Gobi Desert. Everyone stared. Why pick a place where even birds won't land? The energy minister asked. Because it's high ground, floods can't reach it. The rock is hard. Earthquakes won't collapse it. It's empty. Easy to lock down militarily and easy to build on. Most importantly, I turned to face them all. This is the heart of the Eurasian continent, backed by natural mountain barriers. When the disasters hit and global order falls apart, this will be our last fortress of steel. I looked at Elder Chun. One day, I need the country to fence off this 10,000 acres, clear it, level it, and finish all paperwork in 24 hours. I'm planting my farm right here. He looked at the map, looked at me, nodded, approved. Lei Jun, sir, handle it personally. Call in the nearest engineer division. Use every piece of heavy machinery available. Blow it up or dig it by hand. I don't care. 24 hours. I want 10,000 acres of flat ground. After that, stay at Xiaoqin's side and handle everything the farm needs. Yes, sir. Hours later, I was standing on a small hill in the northwest, watching the impossible happen. The Gobi Desert was shaking. On the horizon, a river of steel rolled forward. Over 1,000 excavators and bulldozers in camouflage paint, lined up like a battle formation, shovels gleaming in the sunset, tearing through rock and sand. Transport planes flew low overhead, rear doors open. Parachutes bloomed across the sky like dandelion seeds, stretching for miles. Emergency supplies and advanced teams dropping in. An engineer division commander stood on top of his jeep, screaming through a megaphone. Move it. 1st Battalion blasts the rock. 2nd Battalion fills the holes. If I don't see flat ground by nightfall, I'm burying your company commanders as foundation. Sir, the rock's too hard. Drills can't get through. Then chew through it with your teeth. Shove the charges in and blow it. I don't care how. I want flat ground. Tens of thousands of engineers, airlifted from bases across the country, ran across the rocky wasteland under blazing sun and howling wind, shirtless, hauling crates of explosives. Sweat evaporated into salt the moment it left their skin. Their work chants drowned out the wind. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions echoed across the desert. Dust clouds rose hundreds of meters high. Machines roared. Boulders were hauled away. Hills were flattened. This was the power of an entire nation. This kind of scene, only one country on Earth could pull it off. I watched from that hilltop, heart pounding. If I'd been alone, even with the system, leveling this wasteland would have taken me years. The country did it in a day. Advisor Chin, the land is ready. Lejeune walked up, his uniform caked in dust, and handed me a water bottle. Leveled, corner stake set, paperwork done. This land is officially yours. He showed me a tactical terminal, a land transfer contract stamped with a red government seal. Your turn now. I took the water, drank deeply, and let the cold liquid run down my cracked throat. Pull the troops back. Without authorization, the farm rejects anyone else's presence. I looked at Lejeune. General, watch closely. What happens next is going to destroy your materialist worldview. He stared at me for a long moment, didn't ask questions, and grabbed his radio. All units withdraw. Repeat. All units withdraw from the core zone. In 20 minutes, the roaring construction site went silent. Just a few trucks still rumbling in the wind. Nothing but the desert and the sound of empty air. I walked alone past the perimeter line. The rocks under my boots were still hot. Nothing grew here. Absolute dead land. But not for long. I closed my eyes. System. Activate the multidimensional eco-farm. Ding. Detected. Host has obtained full control of 10,000 acres. Detected. National level administrative approval confirmed. Activation conditions met. Multidimensional eco-farm system officially online. Aloha. Not through the ears. It came up through the ground, through the soles of my feet, straight into my bones. Every person within 30 miles felt it vibrate inside their skull. The wind stopped. The sand froze midair. The ground beneath me started to glow. Blue light erupted from the earth, not scattered, but precise, like thousands of surgical lasers cutting upward through the sky. They punched clean through the clouds, leaving a massive hole. Then the beams bent, crossed, and wove together overhead, forming a transparent dome that settled perfectly over my 10,000 acres like a giant upside-down bowl. Inside the dome, physics rewrote itself. The savage northwest wind hit the barrier and just died, like it had slammed into a wall that shouldn't exist. Then the real miracle started. The salt-crusted gravel, the rock-hard desert floor that hadn't grown a single blade of grass in a billion years, it began to move. Under the blue light, the ground softened, broke apart, and reformed. The dead yellow turned darker and darker until it became rich, oily black-brown soil. The kind of premium black earth you only find in the best farmland in the Northeast. The kind so fertile, you could squeeze oil out of a fistful. In maybe 15 seconds, the Northwest Gobi turned into paradise. Outside the perimeter, Lejeune's hands were shaking on his binoculars. Then his comms officer ripped off his headset, looking like he'd seen a ghost. Sir, satellite signal lost. The target area, it's gone. Radar shows blank space. Optical satellites show scrambled data. Thermal imaging reads absolute zero. On every electronic device, those 10,000 acres just don't exist anymore. Full spectrum stealth. My farm wasn't just farmland. It was the most advanced cloaking technology on the planet. At the center of the black soil, the air rippled like water, and a silver tower materialized out of nothing. No foundation. It just floated there, 10 meters off the ground, its surface flowing with liquid light. No seams, no bolts. Pure, elegant, impossibly advanced. The ecological control tower, the brain of the farm. I tilted my head back and let the blue light rain fall on me. It had no weight, just a gentle warmth. I breathed in deep. No dust, no dry desert air, just the smell of rich earth and clean oxygen. The smell of life. The system panel opened across my vision. Multidimensional eco-farm. Online. Host authorization. Confirmed. Level. LV1. Defense. Phase 1 optical force field. Active. Environment. constant 22 degrees Celsius. Radiation blocked 100%. Air purification running. Time flow ratio, 10:1. Unlocked crop, acid rain-resistant wheat, prototype seed. Beginner task 1. Complete first planting within 24 hours. Reward, 50 points. I rolled my neck and let myself smile. In my last life, my system had been a broken, bare-bones version. Compared to this fully powered setup, that was like comparing a flip phone to a supercomputer. Thank the country. Without national support, I never could have dreamed of 10,000 acres. Never could have powered the shield to full strength. Inside the dome, a cool breeze, perfect spring weather at 22 degrees. Outside, blazing sun, ground temperature near 40, hot enough to cook an egg. One thin membrane between two completely different worlds. Then I heard a scream. Some young soldier had gotten curious and poked the barrier with his finger. A blue electric arc exploded on contact and launched him 2 meters through the air into a pile of rocks. Enemy attack. Hundreds of guns snapped up, all pointed at my farm. Stand down. Lower your weapons. That's friendly, Lejeune shouted, throwing down his binoculars and sprinting toward me. But then I activated the optical camouflage. From the outside, everything vanished. The glowing dome, the black soil, the silver tower, me. All of it twisted and disappeared in an instant. Nothing left but the same barren, rocky desert that had been there for millions of years, as if none of it had ever existed. Chin Ling, Lejeune's voice cracked. I could hear the raw panic. The country's newly appointed general, their one and only hope, gone from right under his nose. Cold sweat poured down his face. The engineer commander drew his pistol. Lejeune charged toward the empty desert with red eyes, ready to throw himself into whatever had swallowed me. I could tell from his face, if I was gone, he'd answer for it with his life. Just before he reached the boundary, I reached my hand through the invisible wall and grabbed his arm. General Lay, what's the rush? The camouflage peeled back like a curtain. There I was, standing on the edge of the black soil, perfectly fine, grinning at him. Behind me, rich dark earth, the silver tower rising into the air, the whole thing looking like something out of a dream. He was gasping, staring at my hand on his arm, then at the farm that had appeared from nowhere. His voice, the voice of a man who never shook, was trembling. Quantum invisibility? That's impossible. Just a little optical trick, I said casually, like I'd done a card trick at a party. I let go of his arm, brushed the dust off his shoulder, and stepped aside with a sweep of my hand. You can't see much from outside, General. Come in and have a look. I pointed at the silver tower. Without my authorization, this farm is the safest place on Earth. A nuclear bomb would have to take a detour. It's windy out here. Want to come inside and talk? Lejeune took one deep breath of dusty air, forced down whatever was churning inside him, and stepped across the line that had just zapped a soldier 10 feet through the air. One step. A new world opened up. No wind cutting your face. No sun burning your skin. Lejeune stepped inside, and it was like jumping from a furnace into a perfect air-conditioned room. The air smelled like fresh earth and something clean that made your head sharp and clear. He looked down at his boots. The caked-on desert dust was peeling off by itself, like some invisible force was wiping them clean. Feels nice, right? I said. Even that old injury on your lower back stopped hurting? He froze. How do you know about my back? He had a piece of shrapnel stuck in there that couldn't be removed. Felt like a drill boring into bone every single day. But now, the pain was just gone, replaced by warmth. That's when a system window popped up in my vision. High trust individual detected. Lejeune. Loyalty, 98%. This individual would sacrifice everything for the nation. Worthy of absolute trust. Bind as farm employee? I didn't hesitate. Yes. A hum rippled through the air. Lejeune gasped as a hot current slammed down from the top of his skull and exploded along his spine. I could actually hear his bones cracking and popping as they realigned. His vision sharpened. His hearing expanded. His muscles rebuilt themselves. Not just the back, the fluid in his bad knee, his wrecked shoulder, his chronic migraines. Every injury he'd collected over decades of combat melted away in seconds. He clenched his fist, and his knuckles cracked like firecrackers. Then he stared at his hand in shock. The strength was back. Not the exhausted, willpower-fueled scraps he'd been running on, but the real thing. His peak at 25, when he was the top soldier in the Blade Special Forces unit, climbing 30-meter cliffs with bare hands. No, stronger than that. What's in this air? He snapped, instantly suspicious. Stimulants? Some classified bioenhancer? Classic security chief. His first instinct was to look for the trap. Relax, General. Think bigger, I said, laughing. It's an employee benefit. I flicked open a display right in front of his face. Special employee panel. Name, Lei Jun. Position, Farm Security Director. Status, full physical restoration. All attributes 10%. He stared at those words, full restoration, for 5 solid seconds without speaking. At his level, squeezing out even 1% more physical performance was nearly impossible. And he'd just gotten a 10% boost across the board. He started doing the math in his head, and I could practically see the gears turning. If injured veterans walked through this farm, they'd come out in peak condition. If elite special forces units trained here. This isn't a farm, he said, breathing hard. This is a factory for making super soldiers. That's nothing, I said, grinning. Don't blink. This next part is the real cheat code. I shared my main control panel. A massive holographic display exploded in the air, data streaming down like a waterfall. Multidimensional eco-farm system. Level, LV1. Farm area, 10,000 acres. Soil, LV1 black earth. Fertility, 300%. Environment, constant 22 degrees Celsius. Radiation blocked 100%. Time flow, 10:1. Unlocked crop, acid rain-resistant wheat, prototype. Acid resistance 90%. Farm maturation cycle, 3 days. Employee cap, 500. Lei Jun's eyes locked onto 2 lines like a radar finding its target. First, wheat matures in 3 days. Second, time flow ratio, 10:1. 3 days? His neck cracked as he whipped toward me. Do you know how long the fastest wheat takes from planting to harvest? Even in a lab, it's over 100 days. And yours takes 3, not just 3 days, I said, pointing up at the dome. See the time ratio? 10 days inside equals 1 day outside. Add in this insanely rich black soil, and 3-day harvests aren't hard at all. His mouth hung open. 3 days per harvest. That meant if we planted all 10,000 acres, this country would have an infinite grain supply. When the rest of the world is killing each other over a piece of moldy bread, our people could be eating fresh steamed buns, enough to feed livestock, even. In general, I said, watching his expression, do the math carefully. The time acceleration doesn't just work on plants. It works on people. It works on research. If Professor Zhou runs experiments in here, 1 day passes outside while he's had 10 days of work. We'll have 10 times more preparation time than anyone else on Earth. His pupils shrank to pinpoints. Strategic time advantage. That was the biggest card I could give this country. 90 days until the end of the world. Out there, 3 months is barely enough to dig 1 decent underground bunker. But inside my farm, with the 10:1 time ratio, that's 900 days. Nearly 3 years. 3 years to let Zhou Huaishui's team improve the seeds 100 times over. 3 years to turn this place into a fortress that not even a nuke could crack. 3 years to forge raw recruits into elite soldiers. We were stealing time from fate itself. Those employee slots, we have to use every single one. Lei Jun was staring at the 500-person cap with bloodshot eyes. He'd completely dropped his cool composure and looked like a starving wolf who'd spotted meat. Already planned, I said. 450 slots go to soldiers, the hardest working, most tight-lipped, best physical specimens in the entire military. The other 50 go to Zhou Huaishui and the research teams. As for the 3 special employee spots, you get 1 for security. Zhou gets 1 for agricultural science. The last one we save for an engineering or research heavyweight. Done. Lei Jun spun around and marched out of the farm. He didn't even acknowledge the engineer commander waiting outside. Just yanked out his red satellite phone and dialed so hard he nearly smashed the buttons. 1 sentence, voice cracking from excitement. This is Lei Jun, codename Chin Ling. Right now, immediately, get me 450 Special Forces soldiers from across the country, the most elite you have. Preferably wounded veterans who haven't retired yet. Why wounded ones? Don't ask questions, just do it. And the Agricultural Academy scientists, fly them all here. No planes available. Turn a cargo plane into a passenger jet. If I don't see people in 1 hour, I'll shoot you myself. He hung up, chest heaving, and looked at me with eyes that were practically on fire. Advisor Chin, forget 1 hour. Those boys will be parachuting in before you know it. Once they're through this door, anyone who slacks off, I'll kick them to death personally. I couldn't help laughing. That's a soldier of this country for you. We went back inside, and I walked him toward the silver tower. The farm layout was simple. 5,000 acres of glistening black soil on the east side. So rich it looked like someone had poured ink on it. 5,000 acres of perfectly flat grassland on the west, smoother than anything I'd ever seen. Along the way, Lejean stopped at a virtual sign by a field ridge and tapped it open. Soil LV1. Unremarkable black earth. Fertility 300%. Mutation chance 10%. What does mutation chance 10% mean? He asked, frowning. Good mutations, I explained. Plant regular wheat, and it might come out with bigger, fuller grains. Maybe it develops cold resistance or drought tolerance. Like a lottery, 1 in 10 chance of hitting something special. He sucked air through his teeth. Then his eyes drifted to something else on my panel. What about that mall roulette in your backpack? It's grayed out. That's the system store's lottery feature. The store unlocks at level 2. Once it opens, I can spend points like money to buy disaster-resistant crops and tech that doesn't exist on Earth. I stopped walking, pulled a neatly folded blueprint from my pocket, and handed it to him. Take a look. Once we hit level 2, we can unlock this. He took it, glanced down, and his eyelid twitched hard. The blueprint showed a massive honeycomb-shaped, transparent dome, covered in dense formulas and parameters. A label read, Planetary Atmospheric Filtration System, miniaturized version. What is this? His voice went tight. A molecular sieve air purification dome, I said quietly. This thing matters more than food. With it, we can open an umbrella over the entire country. Acid rain, sandstorms, even airborne lethal viruses. Under this umbrella, everything beneath it becomes clean land. His knuckles turned white gripping the paper. He understood instantly. In the apocalypse, the worst killer isn't hunger. It's the environment you can't escape from. If we could blanket the whole nation with these, how many points does it cost? He handed the blueprint back like it was a live bomb. Not much for one, I smiled. But covering the entire country? That's astronomical. So we need to farm. Harvests mean points. Points mean survival. We reached the base of the ecological control tower. Up close, it was stunning. Not a single screw or seam, hovering 10 meters off the ground. Its energy core at the top pulsing like a heartbeat, washing everything below in white light. Floating screens surrounded it, streaming data. Lejean squinted at them. Looks like gibberish to me. What is this, a quantum computer? Honestly, I don't know either. Never saw this thing in my last life. I shrugged. The system says it's the farm's brain. Defense, temperature, time acceleration, it controls everything. I tapped a few things on my panel. The tower hummed in response, and every screen lit up in glaring red. Beginner Task 1. Complete first planting within 24 hours. Time remaining, 23 hours, 10 minutes. I flipped my wrist, and a golden seed sat in my palm. Heavier than normal wheat, warm to the touch, with a faint glow on its skin. This is the acid rain-resistant wheat prototype, I said, holding it up to the light. I swear this thing's made of titanium alloy. Soak it in strong acid for 3 days, and it won't even peel. But it's a wild mother seed. Zhou Huaishui's team will need to tame it before it's usable. Lejean stared at the single seed. That's it. 1 seed to save the country. Relax. The system gave me 10,000. They're all in my inventory. I pointed at the black soil. The plan is simple. Plant all 10,000 seeds on half an acre. Use the 10 times time speed to breed them like crazy. Once we've got enough seed stock, we'll have a real foundation for research and mass production. Right then, a deep roar shook the sky overhead. 5 massive Y-20 transport planes tore across the horizon in formation, belly doors open, white parachutes blooming everywhere like a snowstorm. They're here, Lejean slapped his thigh. Those little bastards are fast. 7 military regions. 450 elite soldiers. Not just soldiers, the sharpest blades this country had. They hit the ground, gathered their chutes, and formed up in under 3 minutes. Perfect square formation, not a single wasted motion. Just the crunch of combat boots on gravel. You could smell the iron discipline from hundreds of meters away. The one leading them was a colonel with an eye patch over his left eye. His face looked a lot like Lejean's, but rougher. The kind of face that had crawled out of a pile of corpses more than once. Flying Dragon Special Warfare Unit, Lei Ting, reporting with 450 soldiers. All troublemakers, do whatever you want with them, he bellowed like a broken gong. Lei Jun pointed toward the farm. Shut up and get them inside. Lei Ting blinked his one eye. All he could see was empty desert surrounded by construction vehicles. The farm's optical camouflage was on. Without clearance, this place was just barren wasteland. You blind in the brain too? Lei Jun didn't bother explaining. He just kicked Lei Ting square in the backside. Move. Lei Ting stumbled forward and hit what looked like thin air. A shimmering membrane rippled open like water and swallowed him whole. He vanished. The formation behind him finally stirred. Fingers tightened on triggers. If discipline had been any weaker, they'd have opened fire. Their commander had just disappeared into nothing. What are you waiting for? Follow, Lei Jun ordered. 449 soldiers gritted their teeth and walked through. Every single one of them went stupid. 1 second, scorching desert, sand in your eyes, heat that could cook you alive. Next second, cool, perfect air, a vast plain of black soil, and a silver tower floating overhead. A young soldier from the northeast dropped to his knees and grabbed a handful of dirt. Rich, oily, black as ink. Squeeze it and it clumps. Let go and it crumbles. The smell of pure, perfect earth hit him like a punch. Sergeant, this can't be real. This soil is better than back home. You could wring cooking oil out of it. Lei Ting ignored the chatter. His one good eye was locked on me, standing under the silver tower. This was the top secret they'd been briefed on. They'd all signed the strictest confidentiality agreement of their lives. Some had even written farewell letters. And they were here to farm. I looked at these dust-covered, hard-eyed men and didn't bother with any big speech. I just tapped a few buttons on my control panel and opened the batch-binding interface. Welcome to my farm, I said, my voice amplified through the tower speakers so everyone could hear clearly. I'm Chin Ling, the person in charge. Long trip, I know. No welcome gift to offer. So let me start with an employee benefit. I hit confirm. Binding 450 standard employees, confirmed. The tower's core blazed blue. 450 beams of light shot down, each one landing precisely on one person. Groans rippled through the formation. Not pain, something else entirely. A flood of energy poured into every one of them, running down their spines, reaching into every corner of their bodies. It itched deep in the bone. Broken bones reconnecting, worn-out cartilage regrowing. Old wounds, chronic injuries, the damage of a decade of combat. All of it being stripped away. The whole formation crackled with popping sounds. 450 bodies repairing themselves at once. 30 seconds, maybe less. Then it was over. The light faded. Lei Ting rolled his neck. It cracked clean and sharp. Then he froze. His hand drifted up to his left eye, the one that had been dead for years, destroyed by shrapnel during a drug lord raid. He felt warmth there, a stinging pressure, something swelling back to life. His fingers trembled as he peeled off the black eye patch. Light, blurry, doubled, but real. He could see light. My eye. He clenched his fist so hard his knuckles exploded with a crack. I can see. All around him, voices erupted. My leg. The pain is gone. The northeast kid jumped and shot 2 meters straight up into the air. He landed so hard, he cratered the black soil. Holy shit, Colonel. I feel like I could rip a tiger apart with my bare hands. My punctured lung healed. I can actually breathe. My injuries are gone too. This isn't an employee benefit. They gave us brand new bodies. The whole formation erupted. These iron-hard men, guys who could lose an arm and crack jokes about it, were standing there with red eyes, looking at their healed bodies. For soldiers, their body is their weapon. Every year, every injury, the weapon rusts a little more until one day it's scrap metal and you can't serve your country anymore. That's their deepest fear. And I just fixed every rusted weapon in the formation and made them better than new. Lei Jun was grinning so wide his face might split. He slapped Lei Ting on the shoulder hard enough to nearly knock him over. Hey, brother, what the hell? You trying to cripple me? Lei Ting grumbled. Shut up. You got your eye back and you're still complaining? Lei Jun smacked the back of his head. Get back in line, bro. Lei Ting's voice went rough. I can see you've got a lot more white hair now. Get lost. Stop being sentimental. It's annoying. But I noticed Lei Jun's hands were shaking behind his back. His little brother had followed him into the military. lost that eye in the line of duty. That kind of guilt doesn't go away easy. Now he could finally breathe a little. I let them have their moment. Then a golden notification popped up in my vision. Ding! Farm population threshold reached. Employees, 450/500. Buff active. Full body repair. All stats 5% for standard employees, 10% for special employees. Bonus, 50 points. Current balance, 55 points. Building unlocked. Employee living quarters, basic. Unexpected bonus for filling the roster. And thank God the building was free. Otherwise these guys would have been sleeping on the grass. All right, everyone feeling good? I called out. Clear some space. Move back 500 meters to the west. Got a surprise coming, and I'd rather not bury anyone, Lejean signaled. The soldiers pulled back fast without question. Then I raised my hand toward the empty ground. Rise. The earth shook. Soil churned. Liquid silver metal erupted from underground, shapeless at first, then flowing, molding, hardening in seconds. It defied every law of physics these men had ever learned. In 20 seconds flat, 2 6-story dormitory buildings, a full cafeteria, and an outdoor training field. All finished. Through the huge one-way glass windows of the cafeteria, you could see rows of automated cooking robots running self-diagnostics, little blue lights blinking. Basic living quarters, I said, scanning the description. Self-cleaning, temperature-controlled sleep pods, nutrition system that adjusts meals based on your body's metabolism in real time. Decent enough, I guess. Dead silence. Someone swallowed. It echoed across the quiet field. Latings freshly healed, I was bulging. This breaks every rule of construction. If you took this into real estate, every developer in the country would hang themselves. Lejean walked over and touched the metal wall. Smooth, cold, harder than military-grade alloy. He turned to me with a complicated look. Kid, how much more are you hiding? I dusted off my hands, keeping my face casual even though I was thrilled inside. Basic stuff. Nothing fancy. My employees deserve good benefits. They need to eat well, sleep well, and get stronger if they're going to farm hard. Besides, this place is humanity's last fortress. Can't have people living in tents. Can this building technology be copied? Lejean's tone turned serious. Not yet. It's a system-bound feature, I said honestly. But if the farm reaches level 5 and I unlock the molecular 3D printing engine, you can have as many of these buildings as you want. As many as you want. I could practically see Lejean's heart skip. Then helicopter blades roared from the horizon. 3 black attack helicopters fought through the wind and hovered overhead. The cabin door cracked open and a white blur shot out. Literally shot out. The helicopter was still a meter off the ground, and this person jumped, clutching a silver briefcase, not even waiting for the stairs. The soldiers below went pale and scrambled to catch whoever this maniac was. Professor, slow down. It hasn't landed yet, an assistant screamed from inside, voice cracking. Seeds. Chin Ling. Where are my seeds? Zhou Huaishui couldn't hear a thing. One of his shoes flew off when he landed. He didn't even look back for it, just sprinted barefoot across the rocky desert, white hair whipping in the rotor wash, looking like a mad scientist who'd just broken out of prison. Some of the young soldiers couldn't believe an old man could run that fast. He hit the security line, and 2 soldiers instinctively blocked him. He looked ready to bite them. I watched that stumbling, charging figure and felt something tug hard inside my chest. I straightened my collar, walked out to meet him, and caught him just before he face-planted into the dirt. Professor Zhou, that's a pretty hardcore entrance. Shut up. Show me the seeds. Zhou Huaishui grabbed my arm so hard his nails dug into my skin. Spit flew in my face. Acid-resistant? Pentaploid? Where? If you're messing with me, old man's dying right here today. I pulled him through the optical barrier into the farm. One step in, he froze. His bare foot sank into the soft, oily black soil, and his whole body shuddered. This man had worked with dirt his entire life. He knew exactly what he was feeling. The richest earth imaginable, several times more fertile than the best farmland in the Northeast. Every grain of it practically buzzing with life. The dozen or so scientists who followed him in went silent too. A second ago, they'd been squinting against sandstorms. Now they were staring at endless black soil, green grass, a floating silver tower, an air so clean your lungs wanted to sing. The system pinged. 17 new employees detected. Finding special employee, Zhou Huaishui. Loyalty, 100%. Position, farm seed director. Status, full body repair, all stats 10%. Permission granted, level 1 inside eye, agricultural edition. Zhou Huaishui's body jolted. His cloudy old eyes snapped into perfect focus. He could see the light reflecting off a dewdrop on a blade of grass 15 meters away. Then streams of translucent data appeared in his vision: soil composition, biological enzyme content, environmental readings. What? What is this? His hands were shaking as he reached for the floating text. Is this what higher dimensional agricultural science looks like? His knees buckled. He nearly dropped to the ground. I caught him just in time. Professor Zhou, I can't accept that kind of bow. You're a national treasure. But we don't have time for emotions right now. Look at this. I pulled out a bag of seeds glowing faint gold and poured 100 into his wrinkled hands. Acid rain-resistant wheat prototypes. I can only spare you 100 to experiment with. Time runs 10 times faster in here. I need you and your team to use this insane time advantage to develop a mass production version of this seed for the whole country. He held those 100 seeds like newborn babies, barely breathing. His eyes shifted from shock to pure obsession. 10 times, he whispered. Then he spun around and screamed at his team of scientists still standing there with their mouths open. What are you gawking at? Never seen a miracle before? Where's my lab? Get the centrifuge. Petri dishes. Move. Anyone who's slow gets kicked out of my research group forever. These were respected professors and PhDs. Right now they were getting yelled at like schoolboys, but every one of them had green fire in their eyes. They grabbed hundreds of pounds of precision equipment and sprinted to set up a field laboratory. I smiled, then walked to the central plot of land. Lei Zhun, Lei Ting, hundreds of eyes, all on me. The air went quiet. Everyone understood. This wasn't just planting seeds. This was planting hope for the human race. I crouched down, picked out the fattest mother seed between my fingers. The black soil was soft and warm. Dig a hole. Drop the seed in. Cover it up. Simple as an old farmer planting vegetables. But the instant that last handful of dirt settled, the ecological control tower erupted with a beam of blue light that shot straight into the sky. It exploded overhead into a shower of stars that rained down across all 10,000 acres. The ground trembled gently beneath our feet, like something ancient was waking up below. A chime rang in everyone's head at the same time. First planting complete. Reward, 50 points. Balance, 105 points. Crop, acid rain-resistant wheat, prototype. Estimated maturation, 71 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. Lei Zhun stared at the red countdown on the tower's big screen and clenched his fists. 3 days. In just 3 days, this seed would sprout, and humanity would finally have something to fight back with. Everyone listen up. He spun around, and his roar shook the farm. Get the engineering teams in here with tools. We're planting. Now. Yes, SIR. 450 soldiers screamed as one, loud enough to split the sky. Day 89 of the countdown. Humanity's counterattack starts with farming. A little while later, I was standing on a field ridge when I noticed something wrong. A few young soldiers in exoskeleton suits were trying to push a 2-ton automatic rotary tiller through the farm barrier. Stop! My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the noise. Lei Ting was faster. He sprinted over and kicked the machine's treads. The huge piece of metal slammed to a halt, centimeters from the black soil. The young soldiers went white and snapped to attention. Who told you to push that thing in here? Lei Ting's freshly healed eye blazed. Advisor Chin just briefed everyone. Any automated farming machinery not bound to the system gets treated as an intrusion the moment it crosses the line. You want to watch it explode? Or destroy the soil? Sir, we were trying to save time. We thought it would be more efficient. I walked over slowly, my shoes crunching softly on the black earth. I stopped in front of that massive tiller and knocked on its rough metal shell. Out there, this machine means efficiency. But in here, there's only one kind of efficiency that matters. People. I pointed at my hand, then at the ground. This soil has a spirit. Machines don't. If you want things to grow well here, you water the earth with your own sweat. Mechanical farming destroys the land's energy cycle. Clear enough? Nobody spoke. They didn't understand energy cycles, but they understood the tone in my voice that said this wasn't up for debate. Sorry, Advisor Chin. I didn't manage my team well enough. Lei Ting hung his head, jaw clenched tight. Forget it. Just be careful next time. I patted his shoulder. Honestly, even if the machines had gotten through, they'd just break down. The farm's core would repair itself automatically. But these guys didn't need to know that right now. The mood got heavy. Then a sharp click broke the silence. Lei Jun walked over, unclipped his tactical vest, and tossed it on the ridge, medals, magazines, body armor, and all. He picked up a plain wooden-handled shovel from the engineering truck and weighed it in his hand. Lei Ting, fall in. All personnel, strip your gear. His voice wasn't loud, but it hit like a hammer. Guns, exoskeletons, tactical vests, leave them outside. Shovels, hoes, spades, one per person. No tools. Use your hands. Move. Yes, sir. The sound of 450 soldiers unstrapping their gear rolled through the farm like a wave. The country's deadliest special forces operators gently set down their rifles, dismantled their exoskeletons into piles of metal parts, and wrapped their calloused, trigger-worn fingers around rough wooden handles. It was the strangest scene I'd ever witnessed. And somehow, the most sacred. I walked to the front of the formation carrying a plain linen bag. I untied it, and a gentle warmth drifted out. Inside were the seeds, each one impossibly plump, almost glowing gold, faint yellow patterns swirling across the skin like something alive and breathing. Lei Ting came up first. I poured a handful into his massive, scarred palms. He went stiff. He could feel warmth coming from the seeds themselves, not body heat, but their own. Be careful with these, he growled at the men behind him. Every seed is worth more than your lives. Lose one, and you're doing 1,000 push-ups in the desert, one by one. These huge, hardened soldiers took their seeds and turned into the most delicate people I'd ever seen. They'd spent their careers on kill missions and demolition raids. Now their job was to put tiny golden things into dirt, not too deep, not too shallow, and make sure each one could sprout. In one section, I watched a 2-meter-tall black-faced giant crouch down. His hands could crush a man's throat, but he couldn't bring himself to dig with the shovel. He tossed it aside, poked a hole in the soil with one finger, held a single seed between two fingertips like it was a hair-trigger microbomb, and placed it gently at the bottom. Then he patted the dirt with the back of his hand, afraid of packing it too tight. This is harder than defusing mines, he muttered, wiping sweat off his forehead. I had to press my lips together to keep from laughing. They really didn't need to be that careful, but I let them be. Watching elite killers plant seeds was too entertaining to interrupt. Half an hour of heavy breathing and the soft thud of shovels cutting black earth. Sweat dripped off chins and shattered in the soil. A job that would have taken an automated seeder minutes took these soldiers 30. But every inch of ground was turned, every seed placed with care. When Lei Ting gently covered the last seed with a handful of black dirt, my system panel flickered. Crop status, planted. Environmental bonuses, fertility 300%, time flow 10:1, photosynthesis efficiency 500%. Lei Jun had the remaining soldiers set up rings of military-grade monitoring equipment around the field. Tripods sank into the earth, high-precision sensor lenses aimed at the quiet soil. Everyone waited. Then the black earth came alive. Not with an earthquake. With a whisper, thousands of tiny rustling sounds all at once. 10,000 seeds drinking water and nutrients at the same time, their shells cracking open from the explosive force of life inside them. Look, a young researcher pointed at the ground, voice high and sharp. He didn't need to say it. We all saw. Tiny bumps rose across the flat soil surface, all at once. Then the dirt split open, pushed aside by a raw, unstoppable force. A spot of green peeked out. Then it hit fast forward. 1 centimeter. 5. 10. In maybe 30 seconds, the bare black earth was covered in a carpet of bright green wheat sprouts. Leaves unnaturally thick, glistening with dewdrops, waving in the breeze. The smell of fresh green flooded everyone's nose so hard it made your eyes water. Impossible. A botanist who'd tagged along almost lost his glasses. Wheat takes 3 to 5 days minimum from planting to sprouting. That was what? 15 seconds. What the hell? Lei Ting's mouth fell open. The grass stalk he'd been chewing dropped to the ground. I can't even finish a bathroom break that fast. Shut up. Don't talk. Don't even breathe. An furious roar exploded from behind us, and Lei Ting flinched so hard his neck disappeared into his shoulders. Zhou Huaishui. That old man came flying across the field and threw himself face first onto the ridge, nose practically in the dirt, eyes bloodshot, staring at the growing wheat. His portable detector was screaming, red lights flashing, numbers spinning, until the screen just gave up and spat out. Error. Cell division rate. 600 times normal? No. 800. He jammed the probe into the soil, mud splattering everywhere. This isn't just fast growth. This wheat is actively stealing nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium from the surrounding earth. Its roots. In just minutes they've gone down a full meter? This is a system crop? Terrifying vitality. Normal plants absorb nutrients passively. This thing was hunting, devouring energy from the soil like a predator to make itself stronger. I stood there with my arms crossed, feeling pretty smug. System-grade produce, guaranteed quality. This crop could survive in pH 1.0 acid hell. Of course it had to be aggressive. Zhou Huaishui snapped out of his trance and rallied his team. Everyone, get the instruments over here. Build a complete observation system. I want every second of data from germination to maturity. Not 1 second missed. 10 minutes later, the sprouts were knee-high. Half an hour later, each stalk had split into 7 or 8 thick clusters, leaves so tough they felt like leather. 1 hour later, the wheat was waist-high. The empty black soil had become a green ocean. Advisor Chin. Samples. I need cross-section samples. I need to see what kind of monster this genome is. Zhou Huaishui charged at me covered head to toe in mud, looking ready to strangle me if I said no. Go ahead. Just don't damage the other plants. He snatched up a healthy stalk and whirled into the tent where they'd set up a temporary lab. Microscopes, gene sequencers, mass spectrometers, centrifuges, all powered up and humming. Seconds later, I heard glass clinking and muffled shouts of disbelief from inside. Meanwhile, the farming was far from done. We'd only planted half an acre out of 5,000. On the other side of the field, Lei Jun was shirtless, muscles like iron cables, swinging a shovel to dig furrows and level soil. Sweat ran down his back, but he wasn't tired at all. If anything, he was getting stronger with every swing. "Sir, something's weird," said a round-faced soldier next to him, pausing mid-swing. "I'm not tired. I'm getting hotter. My strength keeps growing. I just smashed through a rock with one hit, and I barely tried." Lei Jun looked down at his own shovel. The thick alloy blade was starting to curl at the edges from the force he'd been putting into the dirt. His arms didn't ache at all. They felt like they were bursting with power. This wasn't just the employee buff from earlier. It was connected to the work itself. Every swing, every dig, every drop of sweat. It was like the farm was training their bodies in real time. Farming makes you stronger? If that was true, who needed a gym? Who needed physical therapy? Just give soldiers a field and a shovel. Everyone up. Lei Jun slammed his spade into the ground. Nobody slacks off. Treat farming like combat training. Anyone who falls behind doesn't eat tonight. Yes, SIR. 450 soldiers attacked the dirt like they were charging an enemy position. Time flew. Outside the dome, the sun had barely shifted west. Inside the farm, a full day had already passed. There was no real sun or moon in here. The control tower simulated day and night cycles automatically. By farm time evening, everyone ate dinner and kept working. Following Lei Jun's advice, I'd activated every defense mechanism, completely sealing the farm from the outside world. Nothing could get in without my permission. Nobody could leave without authorization from me or a special employee. This place was now a true hidden fortress. When the simulated dawn broke again, it was already day 2 inside the farm, just over 2 hours in the outside world. A thick, intoxicating smell of wheat woke Lei Ting from his nap on the field ridge. Nobody had gone back to the fancy dormitories last night. They'd all camped right next to the fields, 2 wired to sleep in beds, rolling out on the ground like it was a combat bivouac. The constant temperature meant nobody got cold anyway. Lei Ting rubbed his eyes, opened them, and launched off the ground. Holy shit! Lei Ting's shout woke up every soldier sleeping on the ground. Guys bolted upright reaching for guns that weren't there, just shovel handles. But when they saw what he was staring at, every one of them went silent. The wheat that had been waist-high when we stopped working last night was completely transformed. Half an acre of black soil was now covered in heavy, dark gold. The wheat heads hung low, each grain swollen almost to bursting. When the simulated sunlight hit them, the bristles gleamed like metal. The wind didn't make that gentle rustling sound you hear in normal wheat fields. It was a dense, heavy clicking, like tiny metal beads grinding together. It's ripe? Lei Ting grabbed the soldier next to him and pinched his thigh hard. OW, not dreaming then. Lei Ting's mouth twitched. It's been one day. I walked over from behind the control tower with a cup of instant coffee. Relax. It's not fully ripe yet, just entering the grain-filling stage. The time flow is 10 times faster in here, and this wheat is a fast-growth species. This is normal. Normal my ass. Lei Ting stomped into the field and carefully lifted one wheat head. His wrist dropped from the weight. This single ear has to be half a pound. The yield per acre must be insane. I smiled but didn't comment. Stop gawking. 24 hours until full maturity, and they need a lot of water and fertilizer management before then. No machines in here, so it's all manual. I clapped my hands. Time to work. Lei Ting spun and roared. Everyone up. Grab your tools. Move. This time there was a strange excitement in the air. Every soldier looked at the wheat field like it was their own newborn child. They attacked the soil with love. Then, at the edge of the field, a young researcher named Xiao Lu frowned at his tablet. Something's off with the data, he muttered. Lei Jun walked over, shirtless and radiating heat like a steel bar fresh from the forge after 3 hours of swinging a hoe. What is it? Sir, after high-intensity labor, muscle creatine kinase should spike and muscle fibers should show micro-damage. But look, he pointed at a climbing graph. Every soldier's muscle density increased by 0.03% in the last 3 hours. And compared to yesterday, the total increase is 0.1%. Lei Jun narrowed his eyes. 0.03% sounded tiny. But that was just 3 hours. Over 10 hours? 100? And this, Xiao Lu swallowed. The machine gunner Lu Tianju, he was digging out a boulder and generated 400 kilograms of instantaneous pushing force. Barehanded. No equipment. Lei Jun turned to look at the huge soldier in the distance, grinning like an idiot while hugging a millstone-sized rock. 400 kilos. That was the edge of human limits. Maybe past it. The farm's employee buff gave everyone a 5% boost, sure. But yesterday these numbers hadn't been this high. The improvement was coming from the work itself. Farming actually makes you stronger, Lei Jun said quietly, looking at his own hands. No wonder. That warm current flowing through his muscles felt stronger today. Every swing of the hoe, every shovel of dirt. His body was resonating with some kind of energy field in the soil. This wasn't just agriculture. This was deep physical enhancement disguised as farm work. Set up every monitoring device we have, he ordered, eyes blazing. Every swing, every load carried, all of it goes into the data. I want to know exactly where the ceiling is. Yes, sir. Back in the fields, the soldiers kept going, chanting work songs, swinging tools, morale through the roof. Even without seeing the data, every one of them could feel themselves getting stronger. Nobody needed motivation to farm anymore. They were treating it like the best training program they'd ever had. I heard the commotion from where I was turning soil nearby, and just shrugged. Honestly, I couldn't feel any of it. When I bonded with the system, my body stats were maxed out instantly at 100%. These tiny incremental gains were like dropping water into an ocean. I couldn't tell the difference. When Lei Jun had asked me about it yesterday, I'd had no idea what he was talking about. In my last life, I'd been alone on the farm. I never knew farming here had this hidden perk. But watching these soldiers treat field work like kung fu training saved me a lot of motivational speeches. Time passed. When the farm's simulated light shifted to afternoon warmth, the barrier rippled like water. The last group of people had arrived. This time, the people stepping through the barrier weren't soldiers. They were scientists, white lab coats, thick glasses, bald spots, white hair. They carried strange precision instruments and walked like they'd wandered into a fairy tale by accident. 33 researchers. The list had been fought over at the highest level. People literally slamming tables before the final names were approved. Materials science legends, quantum physics experts, plant genetic engineering masters. Any one of them could cause an earthquake in the international academic world. Right now, these normally arrogant scholars were tiptoeing across the black soil like they were afraid of breaking it. The man at the front caught my attention. Mid-40s, gold-rimmed glasses, an air of calm intelligence. While everyone else was gawking, he crouched down, pulled out a portable spectrometer, and scanned the dirt. Dark matter fluctuations. He pushed up his glasses, voice quiet but razor sharp. The spatial structure parameters here are completely different from outside. Light speed has been corrected in here. He looked up at the floating tower. No rivets, no welds, liquid metal self-adaptive structure, anti-gravity suspension. The optical stealth is just a side feature, isn't it? And where's the energy source? Underground, my system panel popped up right on cue. High potential talent detected. Name, Huang He. Loyalty, 95%. Match position, Farm Research Director, Special Employee. Assessment, Omniscient Scholar, Cross-Disciplinary Genius. Expert in Mathematics, Materials Science, High-Energy Physics. Given enough time and tools, he could build a reactor out of mud. Professor Huang, it's an honor. I walked up and offered my hand. Welcome to the multidimensional eco-farm. He stood and shook it. His grip was dry and strong, more like a precision clamp than a scholar's handshake. General Chin. Elder Chin sent me to witness a miracle. I was skeptical. Conservation of energy is supposed to be universal law. He nodded toward the floating tower with a thin smile. But it seems this land enjoys mocking our physics textbooks. In here, textbooks are meant to be rewritten, I said. As our hands clasped, an invisible light flowed into him. Special employee bound. Full body repair. All stats 10%. Permission granted. Level 1 data analysis access. He shuddered for a second, closed his eyes, opened them, and behind those lenses, his gaze had turned blade sharp. So that's why old Joe was babbling nonsense on the phone, insisting I come. He grabbed my shoulder. General Chin, give me a lab. Doesn't need to be big, just needs power. I want to decode this material model. I have a feeling that understanding even a fraction of it could put our nation's defense technology 50 years ahead of the world. Sorry, Professor, I said, a bit embarrassed. The farm only has the control tower and the system-generated living quarters. No separate labs. You'll have to set up temporary workspaces yourselves. We've been busy farming and didn't get that ready. No problem. He didn't waste another second. Just waved his team forward and they charged toward the living quarters, dragging crates of equipment. I exhaled. Finally, the employee cap was full. With someone like Huang He on board, the farm's impossible technologies actually had a chance of being decoded, replicated, and fed back to the country. Because the farm alone, with its limited area, couldn't save everyone. Only by converting the system's power into national industrial strength did we have a real shot. Meanwhile, outside the barrier, the Gobi had been transformed into a war machine. Dozens of armed helicopters carried massive prefab concrete blocks through the sky like a swarm of bees. On the ground, hundreds of excavators and bulldozers stretched for miles, chewing through rock around the clock. Searchlights blazed through the night. Lejeune stepped out for a look. From a hilltop, he watched through binoculars as thousands of tons of steel and concrete were poured into foundations. Permanent bunker clusters sprouted up everywhere. Engineers dug anti-tank trenches at breakneck speed. Anti-air radar dishes spun in full sweeps, centered on the farm. Missile launchers stood ready dozens of kilometers out, warheads pointed at the sky. Satellites overhead monitored the entire mountain range. No unauthorized person would set foot anywhere near here. This wasn't a farm anymore. This was the nation's final card, an absolute forbidden zone. Faster, Lejeune roared into his radio. All outer defenses finished within 48 hours. Intelligence agencies from other countries might catch the scent any time now. I want this place sealed so tight a fly can't get through. Yes, sir. Inside the research tent, it looked like a hurricane had hit. Crumpled paper ankle deep, dozens of crushed Red Bull cans on the floor, the air thick with caffeine and sweat. Zhou Huaishui had been hunched over his microscope for a full day and night straight. His lab coat was smeared with black mud, his hair was a bird's nest, and his eye sockets were so dark he looked like he'd been punched twice. But his eyes were burning. Under the microscope, the sliced wheat cell tissue showed a structure he'd never seen before. Not a double helix. Something else entirely. He scribbled furiously on the whiteboard behind him. Chemical bonds, molecular formulas, gene chains. Then his hand froze. The marker pressed into the board, leaving a hard black dot. Silence. Then his table went flying. A laugh, wild, inhuman, ripped through the tent canvas and echoed across the farm. Found it. I found it. It startled me mid-conversation with Huang He near the control tower. We both turned and saw Zhou Huaishui explode out of the tent, sprinting toward us like a madman. He was running too fast on no sleep. His left foot caught his right, and he went airborne, slammed face first into the black dirt. He didn't even try to stand. Just lay there, half his face caked in mud, holding a freshly printed diagram above his head like a battle flag, screaming at me and Lei Jun. Chin Ling. Lei Jun. Look at this. Protein shell. It's a special protein shell. Lei Jun got there first, grabbed the old man by the back of his collar, and hauled him upright. Zhou Huaishui immediately seized Lei Jun's lapels with white-knuckled fists and sprayed spit all over his face. Do you see what this is? The outer cell wall of this wheat is coated in a high-strength protein layer, like a virus capsid. It doesn't belong to Earth. It doesn't match any known classification in the entire plant kingdom, but the structure is stable as a monster. pH 1.0 acid? Pour it on, and you're just giving it a bath. This shell breaks strong acid down into harmless water and salt. Lei Jun wiped spit off his face. He couldn't read the diagram, but he understood the conclusion. You're saying it really can resist acid rain? Resist? It does way more than resist. Zhou Huaishui's eyes were bulging. Its photosynthesis efficiency is 5 times that of normal wheat. 5 times. Even if the sky is nothing but black clouds after the apocalypse, even with zero sunlight getting through, this thing can still grow. And the craziest part, its root system actively absorbs acidic substances from the soil and converts them into sugar through enzymatic reactions. Planted in contaminated wasteland, and it doesn't just survive, it cleans the soil. He was gasping, voice cracking from excitement. This isn't wheat. This is a living, self-replicating biological acid neutralization machine. Every scientist who'd rushed over stood frozen. The air felt thick. Nobody spoke. Everyone stared at that thin sheet of paper. Acid-resistant. Before today, those were just words I'd said, a vague hope. Now it was data, diagrams, undeniable scientific fact. Even better than I'd promised. Then Zhou Huaishui's face fell. His brow knotted up tight. But Lei Jun's heart clenched. But what? Its genes are too aggressive. Zhou Huaishui let go of Lei Jun's collar and looked down at the soil, voice heavy. This level of perfection means extreme exclusivity. If you plant these seeds in normal soil outside, they'll drain every nutrient within meters like a bandit, then starve and die from lack of fertility. Even if you force-feed it fertilizer, the acid resistance and yield drop massively, and it can't produce viable seeds for the next generation. He turned to me. Those cloudy old eyes were suddenly the clearest I'd ever seen them. Xiaoqin, now I understand why you insisted on bringing us old bones in here. The system's mother seed is divine, but it's also a monster. Our job is to understand it. Tame it. Extract that aggressive acid resistance gene and graft it onto our native wheat varieties. Make it gentle enough to survive in our country's poor soil. Even if we can only transfer 70% of the trait, that's enough to face the coming disaster. I smiled, walked over, and handed him an unopened bottle of water. Professor Zhou, that's exactly why you're here. I pointed up at the sky that didn't really exist. The outside world has less than 90 days before the end. Normal breeding takes 3 to 5 years, generation after generation. Humanity can't wait that long. But in here, I held up one finger. I've bought you 2.5 years of strategic time with this farm. Do you have the confidence? Zhou Huaishui chugged the water, slammed the empty bottle on the ground, and straightened his hunched back like a general about to charge. 2.5 years? You're underestimating 5,000 years of farming heritage. I won't just crack this. I'll have them develop parallel versions too. Walking on one leg makes you limp. We need backups. Even if the modified seeds can't reproduce for a second planting, they'll still be acid-resistant food. He spun around and roared at his team. You all heard me. I gave my word. Advisor Chin gave us a cheat code, 2.5 years. If we can't deliver, we should all find a block of tofu and bash our heads against it. Now get to work. Open every seed box we brought. I want 100 crossbreeding experiments running. Even if you have to do it by hand, I want that new wheat genome mapped. Yes, SIR. A group of scientists whose combined age was in the thousands screamed back with fire in their eyes. Then Zhou Huaishui turned to Lei Jun about the national seed reserves. They were on the way, approved from the top, transport planes being loaded, but the paperwork for something that precious was complicated and the time difference between inside and outside slowed things down. Plus, I'd also asked for extra native seeds to test plant on farm soil, to see if the magical earth could trigger beneficial mutations in our regular crops too. Fine, we won't wait. Zhou Huaishui waved it off. Let's harvest what we've got and start the first round of screening. Time blurred inside the farm. Days flew past. I slept, woke up, and it was already the third simulated sunrise. Farm day 3. Noon. The countdown on the control tower hit 0. No fireworks. No dramatic effects. Just the wind changing. A thick, overwhelming wave of fragrance exploded through the air, pure wheat aroma with a hint of caramel sweetness, so powerful it forced your stomach to growl. Everyone came running. I stepped out, and my eyes went wide. That half-acre test field was no longer green. It was gold. Blazing, brilliant gold. Every wheat head was enormous, drooping heavy under its own weight, the bristles flashing metallic in the simulated sunlight. When the breeze blew through, instead of a soft rustle, there was a hard clicking sound, armored shells knocking together. Congratulations, host. Beginner task complete. First planting and harvest. General Lei, the system says the wheat is ready. He didn't waste a second. All personnel. Target, wheat field. Full force. Harvest now. 450 soldiers charged in with sickles like tigers pouncing off a mountain. Then the cursing started. What the hell? These stalks are like steel. My sickle almost bounced back into my face. It took me 3 swings to cut through one stalk. A material scientist picked up a broken stalk from the ground, examined it, and his jaw dropped. The fiber strength of this straw is comparable to carbon fiber. This is a natural biocomposite material. You could eat the grain and use the straw to make body armor. Zhou Huaishui was dancing with joy. I knew it. That protein shell isn't just for acid resistance. This isn't wheat. It's a whole new economic crop. Xiao Qin, save me some of the straw for experiments. I nodded. Me too, said Huang He. I nodded again. Then every other researcher started asking. I finally just announced. All straw from this harvest goes to the research teams. Despite the complaints about toughness, 450 enhanced soldiers working together cleared the field in half an hour. Then came threshing by hand. No machines, just spreading the wheat on canvas, crushing it with stone rollers, and winnowing with wooden fans. 2 hours of hard labor. When the last bag was filled, the system tallied the results. First harvest complete. Acid rain-resistant wheat, prototype 1,020 kilograms. Reward, 200 points. Current balance, 305 points. Rating, perfect first attempt. Primitive methods, but full of heart. I walked to one of the sacks, knelt down, and grabbed a handful. Warm, heavy. The husks pricked my skin. Without hesitation, I tossed a few grains into my mouth and bit down. The hard shell cracked, and an indescribable sweetness exploded across my tongue. Not just starch, it was like concentrated energy powder. It slid down my throat, and a warm current bloomed in my stomach, spreading to every limb. Even the tiredness from staying up all night just vanished. I stood up and turned around. I raised that handful of golden grain high, toward Lei Zhan, toward Zhou Huaishui, toward the hundreds of eyes glistening with tears and mouths swallowing hard. In this moment, inside this sealed little farm, hope finally had a shape you could hold. This is our first weapon, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it rang in every ear. Even if the sky collapses in 3 months, even if the earth splits open, even if every crop on the planet fails, as long as we have this, as long as we're still guarding this land, the people of this country will not starve. The scale maxed out. Report, Lei Ting bellowed. The young soldier reading the digital scale stuttered. 1,020 kilograms. Dead silence. How much? Zhou Huaishui dug at his ear, sure he'd misheard. Professor Zhou, 1,020 kilos. Half an acre. Solid weight. The old man's fingers flew through the math in the air. Then he slapped his thigh so hard it cracked. That's 4,000 gene per acre. The words hit everyone like thunder. On this planet, the best experimental fields in the world max out at about 1,800 gene per acre, and that's with perfect weather, unlimited fertilizer, and generations of scientists babying every stalk. Here, a patch of desert that woke up days ago, farmed by soldiers who'd never held anything but guns, using the most primitive methods imaginable, without a single grain. of fertilizer, and we'd more than doubled the world record. Zhou Huaishui threw himself onto the grain pile, grabbing handfuls of wheat like he was holding his own grandchild. It's not just the yield, he said, voice shaking, pinching and rolling the grains between his fingers. Look at how full these are. Flour extraction rate has to be at least 85%. Normal wheat is 70%. That means the same harvest feeds 15% more people. I'd known the number since the moment of harvest, but I let everyone weigh it themselves. They deserved that moment. Now it was time to move. I walked over and patted one of the stuffed grain sacks. Split off 120 kilos. No time for celebrating. The doomsday clock was a sword hanging over our heads. 50 kilos to Professor Zhou for destructive testing. Do whatever you want with it. Harvested grain will be different from the original prototype seeds, and we need to understand how. 20 kilos to the kitchen. Tell the cook to grind it by hand if he has to. Tonight, everyone eats the first bread made from our wheat. The other 50 kilos, I looked at Lei Jun. Put it on a special flight to the capital's Academy of Sciences. Immediately. That urgent? He asked. Has to be. We're the cheat code in here, but the real battlefield is out there. The leadership needs to see and touch real grain. That's what locks in their commitment and keeps the resources flowing. Done. The remaining 900 kilos, all seed stock. Second planting starts now. More? A soldier blurted. I pointed at the ground. This much grain feeds who? We need to snowball. 1 becomes 10, 10 becomes 100. You 450 didn't come here for vacation. Move. Right then, the silver tower hummed, and a blue display opened in the air. New tasks, visible to everyone. Task 1, Home Sweet Home. Build the farm owner a proper residence within 30 days. Reward, 100 points. Unlock 1 system building. Every eye in the place swiveled to me. Lei Ting scratched his head and pointed at the sleek dormitory buildings. What's wrong with those? They've got beds, water, constant temperature. Not cozy enough? I had nothing to say. The system apparently thought its farm owners shouldn't bunk with the rank and file. Apparently the high-tech barracks weren't fancy enough for me. Don't look at me. The system's picky, not me. I shrugged. It's a task, so let's just do it. We've got plenty of engineers. Building a house should be nothing. Lei Jun jumped on it. If the system doesn't specify construction method, we'll do modular assembly. No foundation needed. Fast and clean. I checked the system panel. No special rules about how to build it. Unlike the farming, which required manual labor. Worth a try. Task 1 handled. The display kept scrolling. Task 2, Frontier Frenzy. Cultivate 5,000 acres within 10 days. Reward, 300 points. Unlock second system crop. Task 3, Granary Full. Accumulate 10,000 tons of farm produce. Reward, 500 points. Unlock special system reward. And at the very bottom, in bold golden text that practically glowed with temptation, main advancement task. Accumulate 100,000 tons of farm produce. Must include 2 different system crops. Reward, 10,000 points. Unlock system upgrade package, level 2 permissions, and system store. Every person in that farm started breathing harder. Lei Jun and Lei Ting were staring at those last golden words. System store. That's where the planetary atmospheric filtration dome lived, along with other disaster-resistant crops. According to what I'd told them, that was the real shield for the nation. For that prize, Lei Jun would dig the entire Altai mountain range hollow with his bare hands. See those numbers? Lei Jun spun around, eyes cutting through his soldiers. Stop gawking and do the math. Zhou Huaishui was fastest. He grabbed a stick and scratched calculations right in the dirt. We have 900 kilos of seed. At 20 kilos per acre, that covers 45 acres this round. 3-day harvest cycle with the 10-to-1 time flow. First round produces about 90,000 kilos of seed. After losses and reserves, second round covers 4,000 acres. Third round, his stick snapped. He looked up, face flushed red. Just 3 rounds. 9 days. We won't just hit the 5,000-acre target. We'll fill all 10,000 acres. And by the third harvest, our total breaks 10,000 tons. Task 3, done. Then let's go. Lei Jun's muscles strained against his uniform. Even if it took 90 days without sleep, we'd plant every inch. The mood exploded. No complaints. Just hunger to work. Everyone knew that every seed planted here was their family's lifeline 3 months from now. That night, everyone ate food made from wheat we'd grown with our own hands. The sweetness of that bread made hope feel real. After that, life in the farm boiled down to two things: eat and farm. 45 acres were replanted. The soldiers' movements went from clumsy to smooth, almost rhythmic. No traffic noise, no city chaos, just simulated sunrise and sunset, wind carrying the smell of earth, and crystal-clear water in the ditches. If not for the sci-fi tower in the center, this could have been the ancient paradise from old poetry. The soldiers worked shirtless, sweat streaming down their backs into the black soil. The hard labor didn't exhaust them, it fueled them. Every swing of the hoe, they could feel their muscles tearing and rebuilding, growing stronger. The land gave back as much as it received. Farm Day 7. First light. 45 acres of golden wheat, rolling like a carpet of treasure across the black earth. But one patch in the southeast corner stood out, about 1 acre where the wheat was noticeably taller. Thicker stalks covered in fine patterns. Fatter, more golden heads with over 100 grains each. Narrow leaves pressed tight against the stems. The wheat heads didn't droop. They pointed straight up at the sky like short swords. It looked more like sorghum than wheat. Lei Ting spotted it during patrol. He reached out and grabbed a stalk. Cold. Hard. He pulled. It didn't break. He yanked harder, veins popping on his arm. The stalk barely swayed, but the leaf edge sliced a white mark across his palm. "This wheat is alive and angry," he yelled. "Get Chin Ling and the old man over here." Zhou Huaishui arrived, and his data-streaming eyes went wild. He dove at the plants. Mutation. Beneficial mutation. He was almost screaming. Acid resistance, 100%. Cell wall density 3 times higher than the previous batch. If the original wheat could survive pH 1.0 acid rain, this stuff could probably hold up in aqua regia, and the toughness index jumped to 60%. This isn't a plant. It's biological metal. My system panel confirmed everything he said. "Xiao Qin, try breaking one," Zhou Huaishui said, stepping aside. I grabbed a stalk and squeezed. It didn't feel like a plant, more like a rubber-coated steel wire. I added more force. Nothing. I pushed to 30% above normal effort. Snap. It finally broke, but barely any juice came out. The cross-section was packed with dense white fibers, stretchy and impossibly tough. Miraculous. Zhou Huaishui crouched down, examining the broken stalk against the roots still in the ground. The root system is spread wide with incredible grip strength. The leaf structure minimizes wind resistance. This is a wheat variety designed to survive extreme storms and acid downpours. I'd call it iron wire wheat. My mind raced. In my last life, after the acid rain, the country actually had enough stored grain at first. People didn't starve right away. It was the droughts, hurricanes, and sandstorms that came next, ripping up every crop we tried to grow, dissolving whatever the storms left behind. But this iron wire wheat was built for exactly that hell. Harvest this acre separately. Save every seed, I ordered. This iron wire wheat is going to be our main weapon in high wind zones and heavily contaminated areas. With this, we can build a green Great Wall for the nation. I turned to Zhou Huaishui. "Professor, looks like your workload just doubled again." The old man threw his head back and laughed. "Nothing would make me happier." The sun in the farm rose and fell so fast it made your head spin. I'd set up a countdown on the control tower so everyone inside could track real-world time. Outside, it was the night of July 1st, day 89 of the countdown. The red numbers ticked slowly, but every tick hit like a punch to the gut. We weren't just farming. We were racing death. The second harvest went smooth. The soldiers had gotten good at it. Cut, thresh, bag. Wheat dust and chaff caked on every face, but nobody complained. In half a day, 90,000 kilograms sat neatly stacked in the buffer zone. I sent 8,000 kilos out through the barrier in sealed temperature-controlled crates, stamped top secret. That was the second proof for the leadership. Last shipment was too small. This time, Elder Chun and the others could actually taste what we'd grown. Then came the brutal part. Third round of planting. For 1,000 acres. By hand. That number made even Lei Ting wince. No machines allowed in the farm. For 1,000 acres of black soil, and every square meter had to be turned with hoes and shovels by human hands. "Brother, this isn't work for humans," Lei Ting panted, swinging his hoe, blisters grinding open on his palms. "Good thing our bodies got enhanced. A regular unit would have collapsed halfway through. Lei Jun didn't answer. He just bent down, scattered seeds into freshly turned earth with the precision of someone laying mines, straightened up, glanced at the red countdown, and tossed the empty basin to his brother. If you want that acid rain falling on mom and dad's heads in 3 months, go ahead and take a nap. Lei Ting shut up, picked up the basin, went to grab another seed bag. The planting took 24 straight hours. When the last seed was covered and the last furrow patted down, soldiers collapsed where they stood. They lay in the dirt, chests heaving like beached fish. Palms shredded raw, blood blisters burst and scabbed over, shoulders swollen and peeling. But lying on that warm black earth, watching the freshly planted soil already trembling with life beneath its surface, every pair of eyes still burned with fire. Chow time. The cook's booming voice was the most beautiful sound in the world. Iron tubs full of white steamed buns were carried to the fields, not regular buns, but ones made from our own acid-resistant wheat flour. The lids came off. Steam billowed up, carrying nothing fancy, just the raw, overpowering smell of pure grain. Someone swallowed first. Then everyone was swallowing. The soldiers launched off the ground and swarmed the food. Line up. 3 each. No shoving. Lei Ting grabbed his 3 buns, sat on the dirt, and bit into one. Scalding hot, but he didn't care. It had a dense, meaty chew to it, nothing like regular bread. As he chewed, something happened. The trembling in his exhausted arms stopped. The deep ache from overwork washed away like warm water flushing through his muscles. What replaced it was a fullness so satisfying he wanted to scream. Yes, he inhaled the bun in 3 bites, eyes glowing. For another one of these, I could plant 10 more acres. Please don't, someone yelled back. Laughter erupted everywhere. Soldiers wolfed down their food, some choking from eating too fast, but pounding their chests and forcing it down anyway. Nobody let a single crumb hit the ground. I took my 3 buns to a quiet spot on a ridge, eating while I checked the system panel. Employee loyalty, 100% locked. Group physical improvement from labor, 0.26% to 0.9%. 1 part effort, 10 parts reward. The longer these soldiers farmed, the wider the gap between them and ordinary troops outside. Day 10. In a slightly poorer corner of the farm, Zhou Huaishui was on his hands and knees, rear end sticking up in the air, hunched over plot number 33, one of the test fields where we'd planted regular earth seeds to see what the magical soil would do. He was pinching a tiny sprout between his fingers, and the expression on his face was wilder than if he'd seen an alien. Over in the test plots, Zhou Huaishui made a discovery that changed everything. He'd planted Longxia No. 1, a premium domestic wheat variety brought in from outside. By all rights, the farm's insanely rich black soil should have burned the roots and killed it. Delicate crops can't handle that kind of fertility overload. But it didn't die. The leaves grew twice as thick as normal, covered in fine fuzz. The roots were absurdly strong, gripping the soil like claws. His assistant ran over with test results on a tablet. Professor, the gene sequencing is incredible. Longxia No. 1's DNA is optimizing itself. Drought resistance, disease resistance, all climbing. It can't match the system seeds, but it's already 3 times better than its original traits. Its drought tolerance and lodging resistance have surpassed the best GMO varieties that took 10 years to develop in outside labs. But the real bombshell was the roots. The instruments showed that around every root system, an energy vortex was forming, some kind of high-energy field that was forcibly rewriting the plant's genetic code. Zhou Huaishui shot to his feet, grabbed the tablet, and stared at the soaring red curve with fire in his eyes. I knew it. The key isn't just the seeds, it's the soil itself. There's some kind of active medium in this earth that doesn't exist anywhere on our planet. It's like a catalyst guiding evolution. That's probably why the soldiers get stronger from farming too. He snatched up his radio. Lei Jun, this is Zhou Huaishui. Get me soil from outside. Mud, sand, alkaline dirt, construction waste, anything. I need samples. I'm going to reverse engineer this. His voice cracked with excitement. This system of Chin Ling's isn't just a granary. This black earth is a treasure too. If we can decode even a fraction of this medium, we can create soil improvement solutions. We won't need to stuff everyone into the farm. We can turn the dead land outside into living farmland. I was standing next to Lei Jun and heard every word through the radio. I crouched down and grabbed a fistful of warm, moist black soil, squeezed it tight, then let it go. So this was the real purpose of the multidimensional eco-farm. Not just growing food, it was a super incubator. It could take Earth's fragile agriculture and forcibly drag it up to a level capable of fighting the apocalypse. Give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach him to fish. Still, we were stretched thin. Zhou Huaishui was already doing 3 jobs at once. We needed to hit level 2 fast. Meanwhile, in the outside world, it was just past midnight on July 2nd. Deep underground at the National Agricultural Academy in the capital, behind blast-proof doors guarded by armed special forces, 7 or 8 old scientists waited in a sealed lab. These people were half the backbone of the country's entire agricultural establishment. Some had been wheeled in on chairs because they refused to miss this. Where is it? Why isn't it here yet? An 80-year-old man with thinning hair banged his cane on the marble floor. That Lei Jun boy is usually fast. Why is he dragging his feet with a bag of seeds? Old son, sit down. You're making me dizzy, said Director Li, adjusting his glasses while his own leg bounced nervously. I heard it's 50 kilos of samples, said old Professor Wu, frowning deeply. Zhou Huaishui was raving on the phone. Acid-resistant, heat-tolerant, storm-proof, 3-day harvest cycle. I think he's gone senile. Every one of those claims violates basic botany. Agreed, another professor sighed. pH 1.0 acid rain is basically sulfuric acid. What plant survives a sulfuric acid bath and then yields for 1,000 gene per acre? We've spent our whole lives breeding crops and never seen anything like that. But despite the doubts, nobody left. Every pair of eyes kept drifting to that sealed blast door. What if it was real? After all, Zhou Huaishui was the greatest agricultural mind in the country. And word was, he'd gone somewhere that could change the nation's fate. The hydraulic valve hissed. The blast door groaned open. 4 armed soldiers marched in carrying a silver temperature-controlled case stamped with bright red SSS classified markings. Before anyone could salute, Old Sun threw his cane aside, moved with agility that had no business belonging to an 80-year-old, and threw himself at the case. Open it. Now. Stop wasting time. Password entered. Hydraulic lock released. Cold vapor hissed out. And then, a wave of wheat fragrance unlike anything on Earth swept through the lab like a physical force. Sun-baked warmth mixed with something crisp and sweet. Every nose in the room twitched involuntarily. It felt like having your lungs ironed clean from the inside. The noisy lab went dead silent. Every eye locked onto the case, packed full of shimmering golden wheat grains. While I was busy in the farm, the 50 kilos of wheat I'd sent to the capital was causing absolute chaos. Deep underground at the National Agricultural Academy, behind blast-proof doors ringed with armed special forces, 7 or 8 of the country's most important agricultural scientists were waiting. Some were so old they'd been wheeled in on chairs, but nothing could keep them away. They'd been arguing before the case even arrived. Old Professor Wu was skeptical. Zhou Huaishui had been raving on the phone about acid-resistant, heat-proof, storm-proof wheat that matured in 3 days. Every single claim violates basic botany, he'd said. The old man's lost his mind, but nobody left the room. When the soldiers carried in the silver case stamped SSS classified and cracked the seal, a wave of wheat fragrance hit the lab like a physical wall. Every grain inside was absurdly large, round and plump, with a semi-transparent amber skin that gleamed under the lights like natural armor. Old Sun grabbed a handful first. Heavy, far denser than any wheat he'd ever touched. He could see the unique defensive pattern on the surface without even needing a microscope. Then he did what any 80-year-old scientist with 3 teeth left would do. He popped one in his mouth and bit down. Nearly broke his jaw. But when it cracked, an explosion of rich starch flavor filled his mouth, followed by a hot current that slid down his throat into his stomach. His face flushed red, the direct feedback of high-energy food. Tears rolled down the old man's wrinkled face without warning. The lab erupted into a brawl. These normally dignified national treasures turned into red-eyed bandits fighting over the case. Give me 2 kilos for gene sequencing. Screw your sequencing. I need 5 kilos for acid resistance testing. I'm the director. Everyone stop. To hell with your title. This is national destiny. Sun physically threw himself over the case like a lion guarding his kill. Nobody touch it. Lei Jun says they're already planting the third round. 4,000 acres. And 8,000 kilos from the second harvest are on the way. So calm down and let me go first. Let you go first, my ass. Eventually they sorted themselves out. At 2 in the morning, the underground lab was blazing with light. Dozens of instruments running simultaneously. Slicing machines, spectrometers, centrifuges screaming. An hour later, the acid simulation chamber operator started shouting that his equipment must be broken. They'd sprayed the wheat grains with 5% sulfuric acid, strong enough to make acid-resistant steel smoke and discolor. The metal tray was bubbling and hissing black. The wheat grains looked shinier than before. They weren't corroding. They were absorbing. The skin secreted a transparent gel on contact that instantly decomposed the sulfuric acid into trace water and harmless salts. The biological activity inside the grains was actually spiking, as if the acid was fertilizer. It's treating sulfuric acid like plant food? What kind of monster mechanism is this? Can anything from this planet actually grow this? Before they could recover, the nutrition analysis team leader burst in, waving a printout. Professor Wu. Results are in. He slammed the paper down, fingers stabbing at the bold numbers, hands shaking. Protein content is 6 times higher than premium high-gluten wheat. The starch chain structure is so dense, I've only seen this arrangement in aerospace synthetic materials. He chugged half a bottle of water without breathing. 1 single grain of this wheat contains the calories of 200 grains of normal wheat. You know what that means? A soldier carrying a small bag of food made from this could operate at high intensity in the field for 2 weeks. The materials professor jumped in, holding a few wheat husks he'd peeled off. The outer shell contains a high-strength biological chitin. Stack these husks together without removing them, and they can block low-level radiation dust. The lab lost all composure. Data sheets piled up, each one shattering another assumption these top scientists had held their entire careers. Botany textbooks, genetic principles, all reduced to toilet paper in the face of these few golden grains. Old Professor Wu leaned on the lab bench for a long time before he could steady himself. Then he grabbed a few grains, tossed them in his mouth, and bit down. Hard. Crisp. A sweet aftertaste detonated across his tongue. He chewed slowly, and the expression on his permanently tense face twisted into something between ecstasy and ferocity. He was one of the people who'd attended the secret meeting. He knew about me, about the system, but he hadn't imagined the reality would be this overwhelming, this completely unreasonable. Good, 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 he said 3 times, then spun around and shoved past the still-stunned Director Lee. Back at the capital's agricultural academy, things were moving fast. Old Professor Wu finished the cross-verification experiments on our wheat samples and made a phone call that same night. The results match everything Zhou Huaishui sent us, and we've found even more incredible things, he said, voice raw with excitement. Tell General Qi to stop hesitating. Give that farm everything it asks for. People, money, whatever. If they want the moon, we build a ladder. As long as this seed exists, even if the world ends tomorrow, our people won't starve. Nobody at the academy slept that night. Reverse engineering work on the acid-resistant wheat began immediately. Even if they could only crack 1,000th of the acid resistance gene and transplant it into existing crops, it would be a giant leap forward. Meanwhile, back in the farm. Day 11. While the third batch of seeds was growing like crazy, a construction project was happening on the farm's edge. 5 transport planes dropped camouflage-painted shipping containers. Not weapons this time, but components for my new home. That was System Task 1. Build the farm owner a cozy residence. The problem? I'd let Lei Jun and his soldiers handle it. These guys didn't know cozy. They knew bulletproof. So they airlifted in the latest military modular field command center. Blast-proof, bulletproof, earthquake-rated to level 8. Pure tank-like durability. In 3 hours, Lei Ting's team assembled a full-blown fortified command bunker on the grass. Dark green, square, massive, with windows the size of gun slits. It radiated, ready to take artillery fire, energy. Uncle Lei, isn't this a bit too hardcore? I said, staring at the steel box being bolted to the lawn. The system said cozy, Lei Ting slapped the thick armor plate with a clang that numbed his own hand. Safe is cozy. A mortar can't punch through this thing. You'll sleep like a baby. I rubbed my temples, about to argue, when the system chimed in my head. Ding. Independent residence detected. Task 1. Home sweet home. Complete. Rating. B. Aesthetics are concerning, but functionality is acceptable. Reward. 100 points. Balance. 405 points. System building unlocked. Deploying now. Initiating forced ecological reshaping. Before I could even complain about the B rating, the ground started trembling. Everyone back. Lei Jun grabbed my arm and yanked me away. We all watched as liquid silver metal erupted from underground around the bunker, far more than when the dormitories were built. The living metal climbed the steel frame like something alive, swallowing the military armor plates on contact. The hardened steel that could stop artillery dissolved silently, absorbed, and reformed. Huang He had just stepped out of his lab holding a test tube. He froze mid-step, mouth hanging open. The tube slipped from his fingers and shattered on the ground. In 3 minutes, the ugly green fortress was gone. In its place stood a 3-story, 5-acre silver-white estate. Flowing curves, pearlescent walls that cast faint rainbows in the sunlight. The harsh gun slits had become sweeping floor-to-ceiling windows. It balanced futuristic coldness with pastoral warmth, like something from a science fiction movie set in a countryside dream. New building unlocked. Farm owner's home, basic tech estate. Features: Level 1 9-star ecological regulation system, AI butler, alpha model, 30 caretaker mechanoids, 100 swarm defensive drones. Note: this building has independent life support and defense systems. I stared at it, dumbfounded. This was the system's idea of home. Compared to this, the employee dormitories looked like refugee shacks. No wonder the system had been insulted by the military bunker. A soft electronic voice hummed from the entrance. Please come in, master. The estate doors had no handles. They sensed me approaching and slid open like water dissolving into the walls. A man in a black tailcoat stepped out. He looked perfectly human, skin texture, pores, the way he walked, except for the blue data streams flickering in his eyes. Welcome home, master. I am your intelligent butler, 001. He placed his hand on his chest and bowed like medieval nobility. Behind him, 2 rows of small silver hovering housekeeping robots floated 10 centimeters off the ground and bowed in unison. Lei Ting stared slack-jawed. That's a robot, right? It's more polite than I am. He reached out to pat one of the little hovering bots on the head. It dodged him smoothly. We all walked in, and it felt like stepping from the Stone Age straight into the Space Age. The floors were made of some kind of warm biopolymer, soft but firm, like a mix of hardwood and carpet. The air smelled faintly of plants. Temperature and humidity were locked at the perfect comfort point. No switches on the walls anywhere. Holographic control panels just appeared in the air when you looked at furniture or appliances. No projection medium, retinal tracking. The researchers were losing their minds. Little Lou grabbed at the floating light images. This resolution. Is it particle level? Then we walked into a side room on the first floor, and Huang He spotted something that made him shout. Is that a medical pod? 3 milky white streamlined capsules sat in the corner. His voice cracked with excitement. Correct, 001 said with a polite smile. Level 1 medical repair pods. Designed for carbon-based life. Fractures, organ rupture, major bleeding. As long as the brain is alive, physical repair completes within 30 minutes. Limb regeneration requires level 2 clearance. Huang, he wasn't listening anymore. His trembling hand was already touching the smooth surface, reading the data scrolling on the screen. Gene sequence detection, cellular repair, neuron regeneration. He spun around to Lei Jun. This thing, if we could take it out of here, it could pull people back from death's door. We have to move it to the academy. Professor Qian's health has been failing. If we could bring him here. He was already clawing at the pod seams, looking for a way to disassemble it. A hand clamped onto his wrist. Hard. I'm sorry, sir. 001's professional smile was gone. His blue eyes blazed red. Everything in this estate belongs to the farm owner. Warning. Under Farm Private Property Protection Act, Article 7, any unauthorized dismantling, removal, or reverse engineering constitutes hostile intrusion. His grip made Huang He's wrist bones creak. Please release the capsule. If your hand moves 1 more millimeter forward, I will be happy to personally demonstrate the pod's healing function for you. Assuming the master is in the mood, the air froze. Everyone tensed up. Lei Jun reached for his waist. Empty, no weapon. 001, let go, I said, walking over. Professor Huang is a research fanatic, not a thief. He got too excited. Watch your limits next time. Of course, master. The red drained from 001's eyes instantly. He released Huang He's wrist and even straightened the wrinkles on his lab coat, elegant as ever, as if the terrifying machine from 2 seconds ago had been someone else entirely. Huang He stood there rubbing his wrist, drenched in cold sweat. I caught his eye and gave him a look. He got the message. This wasn't the Academy of Sciences. This was the systems farm. My territory. I leaned in and said quietly, I checked the system panel. Nothing in this estate can be removed right now. But if you need to save Professor Qian urgently, we just need to level up the farm and bind him as an employee. That's only a few days away. He looked at me, expression complicated, and nodded. We moved on to the second floor. Bedrooms, a study, a garden. When we entered the study, there were no books. Instead, a massive anti-gravity desk floated in the center with a glowing blue orb hovering above it, surrounded by several helmets. Light screens rotated around the orb, streaming with dazzling data. An optical computer? A real optical computer, one of the physics experts gasped, rushing forward. He reached for the blue light display, then caught sight of 001 standing in the group and yanked his hand back. Instead, he looked at the walls, where complex blue light circuits were visibly flowing through crystal channels. No fans, no heat vents. He threw himself against the wall, pressing his face to it like a kid at a candy store window. One physicist had his face pressed against the wall, mesmerized by the glowing circuits inside. Zero resistance. No heat at all. Room temperature superconductors. The entire house runs on them. And this energy core, so tiny but powering the whole estate? The only explanation is cold fusion. If I could just open it up, he reached toward it, flinched back, then started pacing in circles out of pure frustration. Over at the desk, Huang He was sprawled across the anti-gravity table, face inches from the blue light orb, looking physically pained. This is criminal. Using this kind of computing power to play games and watch movies? This single optical computer has more processing power than every supercomputer on Earth combined. 001 was watching him very carefully. Lei Jun didn't understand room temperature superconductors or cold fusion, but he understood every supercomputer on Earth combined. His eyes locked onto that glowing orb with a completely new intensity. This wasn't a farmhouse. This was a black tech museum. Then a hum came from overhead. The dome opened, and 100 fist-sized silver teardrop drones shot out, hovering in formation above the second-floor garden. They made zero air disturbance, like silver jewels embedded in empty space. What are those? Smart drones? One of the soldiers looked up and instinctively pointed at the swarm. Don't point, Lei Jun shouted. Too late. Warning. Unauthorized targeting gesture detected. The swarm scattered instantly. One silver ball dropped like lightning. No acceleration, just suddenly there, hovering 3 inches from the soldier's forehead. Its smooth surface flipped and reconfigured, revealing a tiny black crystal gun barrel. A red infrared beam locked onto the space between his eyes. The soldier froze solid. Every hair on his body stood up. Cold sweat soaked through his uniform in seconds. He knew with absolute certainty that if that little thing wanted to, his skull would burst like a rotten melon. Stand down, I said quickly. Half a second later, the drone retracted its weapon and rejoined the formation. High-energy laser. Huang He's face was flushed, eyes wild with excitement. No charge time, instant fire, and at that size. This isn't a self-defense squad. This is a death squad that could slaughter an entire armored division. Lei Ting looked at those floating silver balls and swallowed hard. He'd been so proud of building me a military bunker. Now he realized that against this technology, his armored box was tissue paper. Master, would you like to test the swarm's firepower? 001 asked. They are your loyal guards. Everyone's eyes were begging me. I nodded. Let's see it. 001 snapped his fingers and pointed at a 2-meter granite boulder used as garden decoration. Swarm Defense Squad. Power test. 100 red dots lit up simultaneously. No sound. No muzzle flash. Hundreds of beams crossed. The granite turned red-hot in an instant, then melted like a candle thrown into a furnace. It collapsed into a hissing puddle of magma on the ground. Dead silence. Just the sound of everyone sucking air through their teeth. Lei Jun ran every tactical scenario he could think of. He concluded, grimly, that if these things attacked, he and all 450 of his enhanced soldiers wouldn't last 10 seconds. General Chin Ling, he grabbed my arm, eyes practically bleeding with desire. That light energy conversion core, can I see one? Just one. Even a glance at the blueprints. Our laser weapons still need a giant generator strapped to them. This thing is the size of a fist. If we could miniaturize lasers like this, we could rewrite the entire national air defense system. I looked around the room, every scientist and soldier burning with the same hunger, and smiled tiredly. We'll figure something out for research. But Professor Huang, do you have enough people? This estate is packed with technology centuries ahead of us. The medical pod alone could take years to study. And then there are these robots, the drones, the optical computer, the superconductor wiring. Silence fell. The problem was obvious. Too much treasure, too few minds. Should have built the house first, Lei Ting muttered, full of regret. With that medical pod, those brothers who collapsed from exhaustion during planting would have been back on their feet in minutes. We might have already finished the third harvest. He was right. I looked at the tireless housekeeping robots, the hovering swarm, the glowing walls, and felt a new kind of urgency. Even with 10 times time flow, this technology gap spanned centuries. 33 researchers under Huang He, even working themselves half to death, could only scratch the surface. There was far too much here for our small team to digest. We needed more people. The country's best brains, physicists, energy scientists, computer experts, medical researchers, all of them needed to come inside. People. We need more people. Lei Jun slammed his fist on his thigh. Every top expert in every related field needs to get in here. Leaving a treasure mountain like this untouched would be a crime against heaven. I turned to him. Uncle Lei, after the third harvest, we need to arrange another meeting with Elder Chun. He doesn't know about all these developments yet. This time, we're going to prepare for a farm upgrade and expanded employee slots. We need to gather the best minds in the entire country. Farm Day 12. Dawn. The bugle screamed across the camp. Move it. Don't make the wheat wait. Lei Ting kicked open the dormitory door, towel around his neck, custom oversized alloy sickle in hand. 10 minutes later, 400 soldiers charged into the golden ocean with sickles and wheelbarrows. The third round of wheat was fully ripe, heavy heads bowing the stalks, the air thick with that incredible fragrance. Harvest. Now, sickles rose and fell in perfect unison. The rustling of cut stalks sounded more precise than any machine. Zhou Huaishui came running over with dark circles under his eyes, cradling a handful of wheat heads. I just tested these. The grains are even plumper than last time. No new mutations, but flour extraction rate hit 90%. I grabbed a few grains, rolled them between my fingers, chewed them. The sweetness was stronger than before. Good. How's the iron wire wheat? I asked, nodding toward that section with its metallic gleam. Incredible. Zhou Huaishui was so hoarse from excitement, he could barely speak. Huang He tested the stalks with hydraulic pliers. One straw has the toughness of 3 steel wires the same diameter. He says if we mass-produce this as composite material, we could upgrade all our body armor. He pulled out a broken stalk from his pocket. The fracture point looked like twisted metal wires snapped by force. Only problem, it tastes terrible, he admitted. We boiled some. Chewing it felt like gnawing wheat husks. Scratches your throat raw. High energy, very filling, but awful to eat. I laughed. Can't have everything. This stuff was built for hell on earth. If it keeps you alive and doubles as building material, who cares about flavor? Doesn't matter if it's bad. Starving matters. Store it separately, compressed biscuits or flour, whatever works. Strategic emergency rations. Send the stalks to Huang He for research. As the day wore on, even enhanced bodies started breaking down under the relentless pace. A young soldier's sickle clattered to the ground. He toppled backward like a felled tree, skull thudding into the soft soil. Nobody even flinched. The 2 nearest veterans just tucked their sickles in their belts, grabbed an arm and a leg each, and dragged him to the field edge like a sack of rice. 3 silver-white medical pods stood there with doors open, waiting. They stuffed him in. Door closed. Green light swirled. Less than 5 minutes later, the door hissed open. The soldier who'd been pale as paper and completely spent leaped out roaring, neck cracking, muscles pumped and flushed. He snatched a spare sickle and charged back into the wheat screaming, "I'm back, baby." That became the pattern. No breaks. The medical pods turned into the ultimate cheat, stretching everyone's physical limits to infinity. Collapse, pod, recharge, repeat. The harvest took 10 solid hours, then straight into threshing and bagging with zero rest. When the last cart of wheat rolled into the warehouse, everyone dropped where they stood, flat on the ground, unable to move a finger. Farm Day 13, dawn. Even with the pods fixing muscle damage constantly, the mental exhaustion was crushing. Farming is harder than combat. One soldier groaned from the dirt, chest heaving. But damn satisfying, his buddy grinned back. Feel that? We're stronger again. No kidding. I can one-hand a 200-kilo barbell now. I stood at the warehouse entrance, looking at mountains of grain, and the system panel appeared. Third harvest complete. Acid rain wheat, prototype 7,800 tons. Iron wire wheat, mutant variant 200 tons. Wheat straw, special construction material 50 tons. Reward, 100 points. Then golden text flashed. Stage task 3, granary full, complete. Cumulative harvest exceeds threshold. Reward, 500 points. Special system reward times 1. Current balance, 1,005 points. I opened my system backpack. Besides the point surge, there was something new, a fist-sized gray metal sphere, its surface dull, like something sealed away. Correction core, inactive. Activation condition, not yet detected. I stared at the gray metal sphere in my hand. Correction core. Correction of what? No description, no instructions, just activation conditions not detected. I tossed it up and down. Heavy, but nothing special. Pressed it, touched it every way I could think of. Dead gray. No response. I shrugged and put it away. Right now, upgrading the farm mattered more. The main quest still needed 92,000 tons of crops and a second system crop type. Long way to go. Everyone, rest for 2 hours, I called out. Then we plant round 4. This time, we fill every acre. Yes, SIR. The smell of fresh wheat flour food drifted over from the kitchen, mixed with the oily richness of canned meat. Stomachs growled across the field like a chorus. Leiting kicked the nearest soldier. Get up. Food first. Then back to work. Nobody answered out loud, but everyone dragged themselves up and stumbled toward the cafeteria, arms around each other's shoulders. By Farm Day 14, thanks to the medical pods and the energy-packed meals, we finally turned and planted all 5,000 acres of black soil. The soldiers had become real farmers, efficient, precise, powerful. Their bodies were still getting stronger with every hour of work. When the last seed went in, the system chimed. Stage Task 2, Frontier Frenzy, complete. Reward, 300 points. Second system crop unlocked. New crop, acid rain-resistant rice, prototype. Acid resistance 30%, toughness 30%, drought tolerance 10%. Farm maturation, 5 days. I grinned. Finally, rice. As a southern guy who grew up on white rice, eating steamed wheat buns every meal filled my stomach, but not my soul. I looked at the bag of translucent rice seeds in my inventory, and my brain instantly conjured a bowl of hot, gleaming white rice topped with braised pork. I wiped imaginary drool off my chin and went to share the good news. Meanwhile, on the other side of the planet, someone had finally noticed something odd. At the Pentagon's underground command center, thousands of supercomputers humming, data waterfalls streaming across giant screens. An intelligence officer named Jack shot to his feet. Sir, anomaly in northwest China. Our keyhole satellite signal over the Altai region has gone completely dark. We're also detecting unknown high-energy readings. 4-star General Robert didn't even look up from the oil futures on his tablet. Satellite malfunction? Send it to tech support. It's not a malfunction, sir. The data is gone, completely erased. And 3 seconds before signal loss, there was an energy burst unlike anything we've seen. Not nuclear. More like some kind of force field activating. Robert finally raised his eyes to the screen. A massive black dead zone sat over northwest China. How big? About 7 square kilometers, he frowned. What are the Chinese doing? Nuclear test? Jack pulled up the last satellite image captured before the blackout. Blurry, but clear enough, a barren desert covered in tiny dots of heavy machinery. After analysis, those appear to be construction vehicles and tractors, large numbers of transport planes making constant runs. The activity looks like land clearing, farming, silence in the command center. Then Robert let out a short, contemptuous laugh. He tossed his tablet on the desk and leaned back in his chair. Tractors? Farming? In the desert? At a time like this, he shook his head. The Chinese love their pointless megaprojects. Desert tree planting, and now desert farming. Their leadership must be truly desperate. Maybe they're growing potatoes to feed refugees, someone in the room snickered. But sir, the shielding field, Jack pressed. The energy levels are extremely high. Our physicists believe. Enough, Jack. Robert waved him off like swatting a fly. Instead of watching farmers, focus on Middle Eastern oil prices and our South American operations. Let the Chinese plant their sand. Maybe they want to build aircraft carriers out of potatoes, but no buts. File it. Yellow level classification. General monitoring. Don't let this farming nonsense distract us from real strategy. Jack saluted, turned to leave, but at the door he looked back one more time at the giant screen. That black dead zone sat quietly on the map, not like a farm at all. More like a gaping mouth from the abyss, silently laughing at their ignorance. Robert didn't know it, but his casual, yellow level classification just cost his country the only chance they'd ever have to glimpse the truth. By the time they looked again, what they'd find wouldn't be tractors. It would be a tidal wave of steel strong enough to make the entire Western world tremble. Back at the foot of the Altai Mountains, I was listening to researcher Xiao Lu report the latest data on the soldiers' physical improvements to Lei Jun when I suddenly sneezed. Who's talking about me? I rubbed my nose. Advisor Chin, are you okay? Did you catch a cold? Xiao Lu asked, concerned. I'm fine. Keep going. Inside the temporary command post, I was going over supply lists with Lei Jun when researcher Xiao Lu burst through the door, clutching a stack of papers, face red, nearly slamming into the doorframe. He slapped the still-warm printouts on the table before Lei Jun could even scold him for barging in. General Lei, the latest physical tests are in. Everyone's body stats have jumped 0.5% across the board. And it's only been about 2 weeks. He flipped to a bar chart on the second page, finger jabbing at the numbers. That's the average. Individual results vary by natural talent. The highest improvement belongs to you, sir. Lei Jun grabbed the report. The graph showed a curve climbing at an almost scary angle. Overall physical performance up 1.4%. Yes, your baseline was already high, so the potential runs deeper. Strength, nerve reaction speed, bone density. Every metric has broken your previous peak records. Lei Jun raised his right fist and squeezed. His knuckles crackled. He'd spent decades on battlefields. He knew exactly how impossibly hard it was to gain even 0.01% after you've hit the human ceiling. That barrier is locked by genetics. Normally, it takes years of grueling training and accumulated injuries to budge at a fraction. At his age, just not declining was a miracle. Actually improving? That was the stuff of fantasy. Yet after barely 2 weeks of farming on this black soil, eating our wheat, and a few rounds in the medical pods, that genetic wall had been punched through like wet paper. I leaned over from my seat, mid-bite on a steamed bun. Is there an upper limit? What about everyone else? Everyone improved. Xiao Lu stuffed a bun in his own mouth and flipped through the pages. Strength-type soldiers saw increased muscle fiber density. Agility types got faster nerve transmission. Even Colonel Lei Ting, his dynamic visual tracking, grip strength, and reaction speed all jumped 0.9%. He choked on his bun, and I handed him a cup of water. He chugged it, caught his breath, then pulled up a simulation chart. Professor Huang, he hasn't slept in days. He helped us run tens of thousands of data models. His conclusion: what we're seeing is just the beginner effect of a level 1 farm. If our soldiers keep living here, working the land, and eating the special crops without interruption, within 30 days, all 450 of them will gain an additional 3% physical improvement. But that's the ceiling for level 1. To go higher, the farm needs to upgrade. Lei Jun and I both went quiet, thinking. 3% didn't sound like much, but it was on top of the system's existing 5% buff, making it 8% total. For soldiers already at the peak of human potential, 8% beyond their genetic limit was a transformation, not just an improvement. Don't underestimate it. Xiao Lu thought we were disappointed and started stomping his feet. This is 3% past the individual human ceiling. At this rate, by the time the farm upgrades, any one of our 450 brothers could take on an entire platoon from the outside world solo. Then he glanced at me, lowering his voice. And based on our projections, once the farm levels up, the ceiling rises too. Meaning as long as our guys stay here, eventually they could reach the same level as Advisor Chin. Bodies developed to a full 100% maximum. Lei Zhen's eyes drifted to me. The air in the tent got a little strange. Everyone in the farm knew about me by now. I looked slim and ordinary, but my body stats were maxed out at 100%, locked there the moment I bonded with the system. A few days ago, Lei Ting didn't believe it. He dragged me into a sparring match. I stood in one spot, didn't even shift my feet, and blocked his entire combination with one hand. He said it felt like punching a wall made of solid alloy. I had zero fighting technique, just through wild swings, but when your raw strength and speed are that overwhelming, skill becomes irrelevant. Stop staring at me like that. You're making me blush, I said, waving off Lei Zhen and Xiao Lu's weird looks. Keep testing every day. This little improvement is nothing. The good stuff comes later. Lei Zhen added his own orders, daily monitoring, twice-a-day reports, and the medical team should watch the soldiers' mental state too. Strength growing too fast makes people reckless. I don't want anyone else crushing their sickle handle because they forgot how strong they've gotten. That afternoon, 3 massive Y-20 transport planes roared down onto the temporary runway outside the farm. Lei Ting's team rushed out with dozens of flatbed carts. This time the cargo was something priceless. Silver-white temperature-controlled cases, each one stamped with the national emblem and top-secret serial numbers. Inside them, the country's strategic seed reserves. Zhou Huaishui came stumbling out behind the soldiers, shouting the whole way. Careful, careful, these are the nation's lifeline. Anyone who drops a single bottle answers to me. He threw himself onto the first case, wiped away imaginary dust with his sleeve, and punched in the code with shaking fingers. The lock clicked open. Cold vapor hissed away, revealing hundreds of specially made glass bottles packed in tight rows. Each one held seeds of different colors and shapes. Longxiao number 1, drought-resistant number 9, high-yield number 12. Even 50-year-old heritage varieties. His eyes went red as he touched the bottles, like he was holding his own children. This is the spark of thousands of years of farming civilization. Every seed in those cases had been collected by generations of agricultural scientists, trekking across mountains, rivers, and fields to find and preserve the best native varieties. The heart and soul of this country's farming heritage. Our last source of confidence against disaster. I walked up behind him and looked at the seeds through the system's scanning view. No glow, no special effects, ordinary stats. But they represented the most stubborn life force on this planet. Professor Zhou, is this enough? More than enough. He cradled a bottle of soybeans, face crinkled with joy. Nearly 100 core varieties. Wheat, rice, corn, soybeans, sorghum, everything. If we use the farm's black soil to guide them, even a 1 in 10,000 chance of beneficial mutation is a massive win. His earlier private stash had been too small and random to work with properly. Now the real army had arrived. Time for systematic research. Then let's go, I said. Lei Ting, give Professor Zhou 500 acres of the newly cleared land. Put up a sign, Blue Star Agricultural Test Field. We're going to let our oldest native seeds have a head-on conversation with this magical soil. Also, is my 10-acre rice paddy ready? The system rice needs to go in the ground. Lei Ting wiped sweat off his face and flashed a big grin. Done last night. Water channels and all. Worked the boys till they dropped. Med pods brought them right back. Just waiting for your fancy acid-proof rice. Perfect. Uncle Lei, I'm a southern boy. Whether I get to eat hot white rice again is in your hands. Count on me. That afternoon, the entire farm went into a frenzy I'd call the "We Want Rice" movement. Lei Ting got on the loudspeaker and yelled, anyone who wants to eat real rice, get your ass in the paddy. Even the cook rolled up his pants and charged into the mud. Everyone planted rice seedlings together. In the evenings, after dinner, the soldiers had found a new favorite pastime, crowding into my tech estate. For these rough men, It was like a futuristic amusement park. In the first-floor side hall, a circle of soldiers was making enough noise to blow the roof off. "Go, Colonel. Take it down. Come on, Lei Ting. Did you skip dinner? Don't embarrass our special forces, Colonel." In the center of the crowd, Lei Ting's face was crimson, veins on his neck bulging like earthworms, teeth clenched, cheeks puffed out. His right hand was locked in a death grip around a silver-white mechanical hand. I was leaning on the second-floor railing of my estate, biting into an apple, watching the show downstairs. Lei Ting was arm wrestling one of my cleaning robots, Unit 0303. This little round thing stood about 4 feet tall with a hovering base and 2 multi-purpose mechanical arms. It was designed to mop floors. Lei Ting had his hand locked with its mechanical arm, face crimson, veins popping, muscles shaking. The crowd of soldiers around them was going wild, cheering him on. The robot's electronic voice chimed calmly. External resistance detected. Power output increased to 5%, a tiny hum. The mechanical arm didn't budge a millimeter. Suggestion: cease resistance. At 10% output, your skeletal structure will fracture. Now commencing suppression. Slam. Lei Ting's hand, the same hand that could crush bricks, was pressed flat to the table. Clean. Instant. The reinforced alloy table didn't even wobble. The cheering cut to silence, then erupted into howling laughter. Colonel lost to the cleaning robot. It only used 5%. Lei Ting shook out his aching wrist, staring at the little cylinder as it calmly turned around to wipe the table. He couldn't accept it. Again, he bear-hugged the robot's base and tried to lift it off the ground, every muscle in his back going rigid as steel plate. The robot's indicator light turned from blue to yellow. Large obstacle detected. Engaging heavy-duty cleaning mode. Then it just pushed forward, like a tank. Lei Ting's boots carved 2 long black skid marks across the floor as it dragged him around the room like a garbage bag. It smoothly dodged a flower pot, and with one free mechanical arm, sprayed lemon-scented disinfectant on his backside. The soldiers were on the floor laughing so hard they were crying. A gray-haired materials professor standing near me pushed up his glasses and shook his head sympathetically. "Colonel, don't fight physics. That little thing runs on a miniature cold fusion core. Civilian model, scaled down, but it still pushes over 50 tons. You could drive an armored vehicle in here, and it would shove that aside too." Lei Ting sat on the floor, completely defeated. A cleaning robot with 50 tons of thrust. Stick a gun barrel on it, and it could solo an armored division. The mood shifted. These soldiers had been feeling invincible lately. Bodies getting stronger every day, breaking records left and right. But this one little floor scrubber just crushed that bubble. Outside the estate, 100 swarm drones patrolled the sky. Inside, Butler 001 lurked like a ghost. This was the kind of force the farm commanded. The cockiness in the air cooled instantly. What replaced it was awe. I flicked my apple core into the trash from the second floor. Perfect shot. Don't be sad. Next time the farm upgrades, I'll get you guys some full-body exoskeleton suits. Then you can bully the cleaning robots all you want. Lei Ting's head snapped up, eyes lighting up like someone plugged him into a socket. Upstairs in the study, the atmosphere was completely different. No laughter, just the sound of heavy breathing and furious concentration. Huang He and Zhou Huaishui were huddled around the optical computer, running calculations nonstop. They couldn't take it apart and didn't dare try, but they'd figured out how to use it, and that alone was a revolution. "This is insane." Huang He's fingers danced across the holographic keyboard. "A soil improvement simulation that would take our supercomputers a week to run. This thing solves it in 1 second. It even automatically corrected 3 logical errors in my formula. Problems that stumped us for 6 months are elementary school math for this machine. Stop gushing and keep calculating." Zhou Huaishui snapped, eyes locked on the plant growth models generating in real time, pen scratching furiously on paper. "While Shaoqin's given us access, run every seed mutation pathway we can. This chance won't come again. We still have gene grafting work after this." They grinned at each other. They couldn't understand how the optical computer worked. They couldn't build one. But as long as they could use it, that was an enormous victory. This machine was becoming the engine for the country's scientific leap forward. Meanwhile, outside the farm, changes were happening too. The second batch of wheat, 8,000 kilos, had reached the capital. Most of it was turned into special food supplies and quietly distributed to the most important government departments. The amounts were tiny, barely a few pounds per person, but the impact was enormous. At a top-secret recovery facility in the Western Hills, several retired national leaders were sitting around a table, staring at a few large white steamed buns. That's it. Out in the real world, the wheat we'd been sending out was making waves. At a top-secret retirement facility in the Western Hills, a white-haired retired leader stared at two plain steamed buns on his table with suspicion. "You drag me here for bread? What is this, moon wheat?" His guard insisted he try just one bite. He broke off a piece, chewed, and his cloudy old eyes snapped wide open. A warm current slid down his throat into his stomach, like drinking hot ginger soup after an exhausting march in his younger days. Fatigue pulled back. A spark of vitality returned to his worn-out body. "This flour is miraculous." He immediately started shoving buns into the mouths of the two bewildered old men sitting beside him, then devoured the rest himself. They picked up every crumb from the table with their fingertips. "Get me 100 pounds more of these." In classified cafeterias, researchers coming off night shifts were having the same experience, eating a single bun and feeling their exhaustion melt away. "What flour is this? I feel like I could pull another all-nighter." Word about the mystery wheat started spreading through restricted circles like wildfire. Elder Chin read through the stack of feedback reports at the Underground Command Center. Physical data from the Special Forces. Health improvements in retired leaders. The sci-fi estate that appeared from nowhere. Every piece of data told him the same thing. The young man named Chin Ling held not just a farm that could save the country from apocalypse, but a ticket to a new era. He drew a red circle around July 3rd on his calendar. Notify Comrade Chin Ling, July 3rd, first Supreme Meeting of Operation Kindling. Inside the farm, we were on day 29. Outside, barely 3 days had passed. 5,000 acres of black soil had cycled through harvest after harvest. Green replaced by gold, gold cut down by sickles, then green again. The wheat was on its 6th harvest, nearly 10,000 tons per round. The rice paddies had expanded from 10 acres to 1,000, yielding about 2 tons per acre, 20 tons total so far. I stood on the 3rd-floor terrace of my estate and opened the system panel. Main quest: accumulate 100,000 tons, requires 2 different system crops. Current: 40,100/100,000 tons. 40% after almost 30 days of nonstop work. Still a long way to go, but we were pushing as hard as humanly possible. 6 more harvest rounds, and we should hit the upgrade, I murmured. Then I felt it. A faint vibration in my palm. I looked down. The correction core, that gray, dead metal ball I'd gotten as a reward, had just pulsed. Barely noticeable, but real. I checked the item panel. Still showed activation conditions not detected, but I wasn't imagining things. I pressed my fingertip against the surface and felt it again, a tiny tremor. The surface patterns flickered with light for a split second, then went dark. I looked up, past the railing, toward the rice paddies in the distance. The seedlings that should have been in their slow recovery phase were shooting upward at visible speed, growing twice as fast as the wheat ever had, like a time-lapse video playing in real life. The correction core pulsed in rhythm with that surge of life energy. It was hungry for something, craving power, almost like it was urging the farm to level up faster. Correction core. What exactly does it correct? Something was happening that I didn't understand yet, and that made me uneasy. Need to push the pace? I said quietly. Xiaoqin, heavy boot steps on the stairs. Lei Jin strode onto the terrace, expression tight. The date is set. He handed me an encrypted terminal. Capital confirmed. Tonight at 8 p.m., first Supreme Meeting of Operation Kindling. Elder Chin presiding. I checked the time. All right, let me get ready. Wait. Lei Jin stopped me, looking uncharacteristically awkward. His eyes drifted to 001 standing behind me, then up to the 100 swarm drones hovering overhead. Xiaoqin, the meeting is outside the farm. The time distortion here blocks encrypted communications, so we have to go in person. For security during the trip, could you temporarily transfer the swarm's command authority to me? It's our defense zone out there. Easier if I can direct them. I knew this wasn't really his idea. The military wanted to test whether the farm's weapons could be separated from me. Even allies want to minimize things they can't control. The air went quiet. Before I could respond, 001 spoke. His blue eyes stayed locked on me, not Lei Jun. Apologies, General Lei Jun. No warmth, no softening. My core protocol contains no management authorization for your identity. Per Farm Security Protocol Article 1. Maximum authority over all affiliated armed forces is exclusive to the sole owner, Chin Ling. Any request for transfer, loan, or seizure is classified as a hostile intrusion signal. Your request exceeds clearance level. Please withdraw it, or I will initiate defensive countermeasures. 001's elegant frame hardened. His faceplate rotated to face Lei Jun directly. Those blue eyes flickered red. It wasn't human killing intent. It was pure, emotionless calculation. Angles measured, energy output estimated, termination sequence cued. Lei Jun's back muscles went rigid. I could see it. Even a veteran like him felt the chill of facing a machine that would absolutely kill him without hesitation if I didn't intervene. Enough, 001. Stand down. I waved casually. The red vanished instantly. 001 stepped back behind me, posture returning to perfect butler mode, as if the last 5 seconds hadn't happened. Lei Jun gave a bitter smile. He'd known this would be the answer, but hearing a machine flatly reject the military's highest authority still stung. I patted his shoulder. Uncle Lei, I know this wasn't your idea, but the estate system is independent. I can't change its core permissions either. Tell you what. Once we're outside, you tell me what you want the drones to do, and I'll relay the orders. Same result. Fine. That works. He tugged a button off his collar and pocketed it, some kind of signal to whoever had sent him to try this. Hopefully they wouldn't ask him to do something this awkward again. Let's go. I snapped my fingers as I passed 001. Bring all swarm units. You're coming with me. Yes, master. Switching to escort mode. 100 silver teardrops scattered from the rooftop and reformed in the air 3 meters above my head, orbiting in formation, moving with my every step. Lei Jun watched, swallowed once, and stepped aside to let me lead. That was absolute authority. No matter how much the country invested in this farm, no matter how many resources they poured in, this force beyond the current era answered to one person only. But honestly, I think he was okay with that. We drove through the optical barrier into the night. Zhou Huaishui and Huang He rode in the car behind us, clutching hard drives and sample cases, their presentation materials. Lei Ting stayed behind, shirtless, leading the remaining soldiers through the 7th wheat planting. The farm couldn't stop, not even for a few hours. When I looked out the car window, I raised my eyebrows despite being mentally prepared. 3 days. That's all it had been outside. The barren Gobi wasteland was now bisected by a massive 5-meter-high concrete wall stretching endlessly in both directions like a gray dragon, sealing off nearly 100 square kilometers. Searchlights crisscrossed overhead in a blinding web. Below the walls, anti-aircraft guns and closed defense weapon systems were already positioned. Missile launchers lurked in the shadows. That's just the first line, Lei Jun said from behind the wheel, a hint of soldier's pride in his voice. We passed through a checkpoint, armed guards every few meters, and entered a construction site in full eruption. Thousands of machines roaring, cranes spinning, cement trucks lined up for miles. Floodlights turned night into day. Workers in hard hats swarmed across steel frameworks, sparks flying everywhere. Rows of modular buildings were going up for the research teams and garrison forces that would follow. Radar trucks sat in clearings, antennas spinning frantically, scanning hundreds of kilometers for any signal. Along the road, green wooden crates were stacked high. Some covers had slipped, revealing the cold gleam of missile fins underneath. This wasn't a defense perimeter. This was a war fortress. To protect the farm, prevent espionage, and prepare for possible civil unrest down the road, Lei Jun said, voice hard. Orders from the very top. Unlimited budget. 3 months to turn this place into an iron fortress. Zhou Huaishui pressed his face against the car window, watching the construction chaos, the wrinkles on his old face trembling. This is really, he trailed off. Couldn't find the words. A lifetime of big moments in science, and he'd never seen an entire nation mobilized to protect a single farm. I watched the construction chaos through the car window, tapping my knee. This was what a nation's full power looked like, terrifying in its scale. My farm had the black tech, but for sheer earth-moving, mountain-flattening force, nothing beat this country's machine. That was exactly what I wanted. I provide food and technology. They provide walls and resources. This partnership was just starting to produce real results. We stopped at a half-buried concrete bunker. No windows. One massive lead blast door. Everyone out. Only special forces here. No regular soldiers. The security check was absurd. Fingerprints, iris scan, voice print, even walking pattern analysis. I cooperated without complaint. 001 and the swarm drones were stopped at the entrance. Heavy weapons couldn't enter the core command room. Fair enough. I told 001 to guard outside under Lejun's coordination. If anything went wrong in there, those things could rip through the ceiling in seconds anyway. We descended 30 meters underground into a huge space humming with electronics. Military uniforms and lab coats everywhere, keyboards clacking, urgent footsteps, tension written on every face. The meeting room was smaller. One wall was a massive screen split into dozens of panels, each showing someone important. I recognized most of them from television. The people who controlled the money, the military, the grain reserves, plus several legendary scientists. Lejun straightened his collar, stood at attention, and saluted. Reporting. Project Chin Ling Special Advisor Comrade Chin Ling, present. Dozens of eyes locked onto me. Curiosity, doubt, scrutiny, and a burning intensity from those who'd already seen what I could do. I smiled, pulled out the main chair, and sat down like I owned the room. A month ago, that would have been called arrogance. Today, nobody said a word. The center screen expanded to show Elder Chun, thin, white-haired, seated before a huge map of the country. His gaze found me instantly. Not sharp, but heavy as a mountain. Comrade Xiao Qin, thank you for waiting. He leaned forward, hands folded on the desk. Since you're here, I won't waste time. He picked up a red-stamped document and opened it. I now declare the first Supreme Coordination Meeting of Operation Chin Ling officially open. First agenda item. He paused, looked up, and dropped a bomb. Feasibility report on completely halting all non-essential construction nationwide and transitioning the entire country to a wartime agricultural rationing system. My pupils contracted. Going this big right out of the gate? The air in every room connected to this call went dead heavy. Full construction shut down. Wartime food rationing. That was like making a bullet train do a U-turn at full speed. The inertia alone would destroy everything inside. On screen, officials whispered to each other, brows knotted, pens hovering over paper without touching down. This wasn't just an economic reversal. This was betting the nation's future on our farm. General Qi Jinghua broke the silence. Elder Chun, before we discuss something that could reshape the country's destiny, I think we should first understand our hand. Many colleagues here haven't met Comrade Chin Ling or seen what his farm can actually deliver. Let's hear his report first. All eyes back on me. Agreed, Elder Chen nodded. Xiao Qin, go ahead. I stood up without preamble, plugged a hard drive into the terminal, and pulled up the data I'd prepared. The farm currently has 7,000 acres of cultivable black soil. Not counting Professor Zhou's experimental plots, 5,000 acres are dedicated to acid rain-resistant wheat, now on its 7th planting cycle. Average yield, approximately 2,000 kilograms per acre, sharp intakes of breath across every screen. 2,000 kilos, over 3 times normal wheat output. The officials managing grain reserves were ripping their reading glasses on and off, practically pressing their faces to their monitors to check if the decimal point was in the right place. This wheat has 90% acid resistance and 30% toughness, good lodging resistance. In the farm's special time-accelerated environment, it matures in 3 days. More gasps. 3-day harvests at that yield. Agriculture turned into an industrial assembly line. I didn't give them time to process. I pulled up a close-up image of the mutant strains. Through intensive iteration, we've induced 2 special subspecies so far. First, codename iron wire wheat. 100% acid immunity. 70% physical toughness. Stock strength approaching low-carbon steel. Downside, it tastes terrible. Currently designated for strategic reserves, seed stock, and industrial raw materials. Second, Farm No. 1 modified wheat. An upgraded version of the prototype, our all-rounder. 90% acid resistance, 60% toughness, plus a new 30% drought tolerance. That means even after the acid rain stops and we hit the extreme heat and drought phase of the mid-apocalypse, This variety survives, and it doesn't taste bad. I smiled and held up 3 fingers. Next, the farm's second system crop, acid rain-resistant rice, currently expanded to 3,000 acres in its third growth cycle, yielding a stable 2,000 kilograms per acre. No mutations yet, but this is our guarantee that people won't just survive, they'll eat full meals. Not every part of the country can grow wheat. Rice is equally essential. The officials on screen were scribbling notes like their lives depended on it. I switched the display to show the tech estate, the AI butler, the housekeeping robots, the swarm drones melting granite with lasers. The military and research leaders looked like starving dogs staring at a steak. The estate also contains a complete ecological cycle system, cold fusion energy core, and defense capabilities far beyond current technology. You've all seen the preliminary reports. I know you want it. Swallowing sounds came through the speakers. Right on cue. Which is why I need people. Top minds in physics, biology, materials science, energy, every field. The farm is about to hit its second upgrade. Our tiny team can't possibly decode all this black tech, let alone bring it outside. We need everyone working together. I transmitted a detailed supply list and a document titled Farm Second Upgrade Plan to every terminal in the meeting. After me, Lejeune stood up. His style was blunt, no fancy theories, just raw before and after medical data from the soldiers. The fitness curves shot upward like a stock market rocket. Long-term consumption of farm crops combined with intensive labor has improved average soldier performance by 1.4 to 2.5%. He paused, then dropped the real bomb. More importantly, every official farm employee receives a one-time full-body restoration, and the estate's medical pods can repair almost any physical injury within 30 minutes, as long as the brain is alive. The military generals on screen couldn't sit still. They knew exactly how many elite soldiers they'd lost to career-ending injuries. If those veterans could be restored, they'd become a terrifying fighting force all over again. Then it was Huang He's turn. He stood up, adjusted his glasses, and pulled an ugly black box from his pocket. This is a regional signal jammer I reverse-engineered from the farm's force field technology. Deploy it, and everything within 5 kilometers becomes invisible to foreign satellites. They'd only see static. He'd been busy while the rest of us were farming. He'd studied every piece of technology in the estate he could get near. He opened a holographic diagram. From studying the dormitories and cafeteria systems, I developed a new temperature control algorithm and non-intelligent robot logic program. The military R&D people reviewed it. They say it could improve our military AI technology by 30%. I also extracted the balance algorithms and power transmission structure from the housekeeping robots. It's only surface-level work, but it's enough to advance our robotics by 10 years. And finally, the wheat straw. He pulled out a golden stalk and tried to snap it. It wouldn't break. I've cracked the formula for this biocomposite material. Processed properly, it's lighter than carbon fiber, but 3 times stronger than steel, with corrosion resistance. Tank armor, bulletproof vests, aircraft skin, even jet engine turbine blades. All top-tier applications. The industrial and equipment ministry officials stared at that straw like it was the Holy Grail. I was genuinely surprised. Huang He always seemed to be wandering around aimlessly, but when it counted, the man delivered results like a machine. Last up was Zhou Huaishui. The old man kept it practical. He talked about dirt. He held up a handful of black soil to the camera. This soil contains an unknown active medium that optimizes any seed planted in it. Growth cycles shortened by 1/3. Disaster resistance jumps dramatically. We've run thousands of comparative analyses. We're on the threshold of cracking a soil improvement formula. If we succeed, we can effectively export the farm soil properties. Turn dead land outside into living farmland. Even if we never manage to splice acid resistance genes into native seeds, we can still use farm seeds to grow food in improved outside soil. That's our safety net. And of course, he raised his head, cloudy eyes shining. The gene splicing work on acid-resistant wheat has reached the initial model stage. Grafting experiments onto domestic wheat varieties are underway. I believe we'll succeed soon. I will not let the people go hungry. His final words rang through the room like a bell. Silence. Nothing but the hum of the projector cooling fan. Everyone had been stunned into stillness. Food, technology, military applications, medical breakthroughs. This farm was a bottomless treasure chest, and in just a few days it had completely rewritten the country's chances against the apocalypse. Then the room erupted into the most intense discussion I'd ever heard. Professor Wu added a report from the capital's Agricultural Academy. Their round-the-clock analysis confirmed that long-term consumption of our acid-resistant wheat slowly improves human body functions, boosts immunity, and even flushes out trace toxins. Not as dramatic as the farm's internal effects, but still a miracle food for the general population. They recommended mass domestic promotion at any cost. General Qi slammed the table. With cards this strong, we go all in. He pointed at the map, drew a circle around the farm, and laid out a new strategic vision. Build a special military zone radiating 1,000 square kilometers out from the farm. 3-ring fortress city. Inner ring, research and command center, with the farm at its heart. Middle ring, elite garrison and military production lines to process the farm's new materials and tech on site. Outer ring, heavy defense belt with strategic weapons. Funnel every national resource here. Concentrate all top talent in one place. The moment Chin Ling unlocks new employee slots, these people are right at the door, zero delay. Where do we get enough soldiers without destabilizing society? Someone asked. Conscription. Chi's eyes were fierce. Issue the highest mobilization order. Recall every veteran. Tell them the motherland needs them to pick up their rifles one more time. Combine it with the farm's employee healing, maximum benefit. A civil affairs official raised the next concern. When the acid rain starts falling, it's basically sulfuric acid. Our cities can't handle that. The atmospheric dome system only unlocks at farm level 2, and even then it can't cover the whole country. Elder Chin took over. Then we build underground cities. Use existing subway lines as the skeleton. Expand the air raid shelters under major cities. Connect them. Add filtration systems. If the surface becomes unlivable, move underground. As long as there's food and water, people survive. A geologist raised his hand nervously. But according to Comrade Chin Ling's disaster report, there's a massive global earthquake in the late stage. If we build underground shelters now and they collapse during the quake, Elder Chin's gaze was terrifyingly calm. If people can't survive the first wave of acid rain and extreme heat, who will even be alive to worry about the earthquake? Dead silence. He was right. Survive first. Plan later. Huanghe jumped in before I could speak. Leave the earthquake problem to me. The farm store will have high-strength anti-seismic samples or structural blueprints. Even if I have to bootleg a knockoff, I can produce a low-grade polymer shock-absorbing foundation. I added, based on my memories, the super earthquake hits in the 9th month after the disasters begin. We still have time, 9 months. If we could push through the early chaos and ride the farm's technology explosion, there was a real chance of completing reinforcements before the quake. One crisis at a time. The construction minister gritted his teeth and accepted the mission. Then came the talent question. Elder Chin looked at me. The farm needs massive numbers of elite researchers. If domestic supply isn't enough, we look abroad. A foreign affairs official proposed, Operation Homecoming. Quietly recalling top overseas Chinese scientists and engineers' undercover stories like cultural exchanges and family visits. As for expelling foreign nationals and sealing borders, the consensus was to wait until 1 month before the disaster. Exposing our hand too early would attract unwanted attention. The farm needed to stay secret. Everyone agreed. Right now we needed to grow quietly. Show our teeth too soon, and the wolves would circle. And money. The resource minister finally spoke up. Underground cities, fortress construction, research programs. The fiscal deficit will explode. Elder Chin smiled. Xiao Xiang, tell everyone how we solve the money problem. Finance Minister Xiang Yu stood up, straightened his suit, and let his normally calculating eyes show a glint of madness. The world is ending, and you're worried about deficits? Money is about to become scrap paper. So let's spend it before it does. He held up one finger. My plan. Under the name National Strategic Reserves, we deploy all foreign currency holdings with one objective. Buy everything. Grain, rare metals, specialty steel, coal, oil, medical equipment. Anything physical on the international futures market. If it's real and it can be shipped home, I want it. Even if we drive prices through the roof. By delivery day, the world will have changed anyway. The Americans love financial harvesting. This time, We used their printed paper to empty their warehouses, national-level looting. Everyone exchanged glances, eyes hardening with resolve. Using a collapsing financial system to violently strip global resources, it was ruthless, it was extreme, but it felt damn satisfying to hear. The world order had always been built on power plays. With the apocalypse coming, who had time for politeness?